Welcome to my channel. Marvel, Spider-Man? No, I'm Superman. Chapter 61 Tenacious Vitality. This guy not only changed his skin, he even changed the energy source of his suit. As Peter slowly turned around, Tony looked at the new energy on his chest, which was emitting golden light like a star, his eyes full of surprise. Also, how did he shrink that huge artificial sun device to its current size? And he was very curious about how it was possible to shrink the artificial star to such a small size that it could actually replace his own arc reactor. You looked a little embarrassed just now. Peter spoke in a calm tone, yet his words were full of sarcasm. You don't understand. I just let him take advantage of me. After all, he was once my uncle. I don't know whether Tony is telling the truth or just trying to save his own face. Besides, you were just meddling in other people's business. Even if you didn't intervene, I could have easily defeated him. So, don't even think about asking me to thank you. Besides, you kidnapped me before, so, be careful. Tony said arrogantly, but suddenly his tone changed and he warned Peter. Roar. A roar sounded from behind Peter, and the monster that had been lying on the ground had actually crawled up at this moment, and the big hole in its chest was healing rapidly. Then, while the two were talking, he quickly pounced towards Peter in the air. However, the next moment, the monster found that there was nothing in front of him and Peter disappeared in an instant. How is this possible? How can he be so fast? Obadiah, who had transformed into a monster, had a gleam of disbelief in his eyes. But it's just as well if I can kill Tony. From today on, no one will compete with me for the ownership of the company. But looking at Tony who was so close in front of him, his eyes were once again filled with endless madness. He simply ignored Superman who disappeared in an instant and rushed directly towards Tony who was not far away. Boom! Obadiah, who transformed into a monster, was extremely fast and before Tony could react, he was hit hard in the body by his punch. Clang! Like a meteor falling from the sky, it hit the ground heavily, creating a deep hole in the road. You said not to let me interfere, so don't beg me later. Peter's figure reappeared in the sky, looking down at the embarrassed Tony below, watching the show with interest. Damn Superman, damn monster. You want me to beg you? Absolutely impossible. Tony quickly got up from the ground, his heart filled with anger. However, the next moment he found that Obadiah in the air had rushed towards him again. The fist as big as a sandbag, combined with the gravitational potential energy of the fall, formed an extremely powerful impact force. Come on, I want to show all of you that I, Tony Stark, am no less capable than anyone else. At this moment, Tony was full of strong desire to fight. He simply raised his right hand, and the nanoparticles on his body continued to flow, and in less than 5 milliseconds, they instantly turned into a metal shield as tall as a person. And the moment the shield was formed, Obadiah's attack followed. Boom! The fist as big as a sandbag hit the shield hard, and an extremely loud roar broke out instantly. It even created an invisible airwave that directly shattered the nearby glass. I'll let you know right now. The nano armor I improved can allow me, a mortal, to stand shoulder to shoulder with gods. Successfully blocking Obadiah's attack seemed to give Tony enough confidence. The next moment, the nanoparticles that formed a shield in his hand flowed rapidly again. At the moment the shield quickly disappeared, a sharp sword blade appeared in his left hand. Under Obadiah's astonished gaze, he slashed towards his body quickly. Call out! The sharp sword blade drew a graceful line in the air, and its extremely fast speed created a sound of wind, as if cutting the air apart. Tisk! Ah! Seeing that the situation was not good, Obadiah retreated quickly. But in the end, it was still a step too slow. His sturdy right arm was cut by the sharp blade, leaving a huge scar deep enough to see the bone. Shit yellow blood gushed out, which was extremely corrosive. The severe pain seemed to make Obadiah even crazier. He kept roaring in his mouth. Not only did the original wound not heal as quickly as before, it was even expanding, as if something was about to break out of it. Hiss! The sound of flesh being torn was extremely unpleasant, and coupled with Obadiah's inhuman wails, it sounded like the moan of a demon from the depths of hell. The next moment, in Tony's shocked eyes, a white bone spur slowly protruded from the wound on his arm, until it completely turned into a bone blade several dozen centimeters long, flashing with a cold light. Tony, you didn't expect that the potion not only gave me extremely powerful strength, but also gave me a life that was almost immortal, and an evolutionary speed that far surpassed everything. As he finished the last sentence, Obadiah kicked his legs suddenly and rushed towards Tony like a cannonball. The extremely fast speed made Tony unable to even condense a nano shield, and he could only roll to the side in embarrassment. Laugh. Although Obadiah's attack did not hit Tony, the sharp bone blade cut off a street lamp behind him almost as easily as cutting tofu. Ahem, if you need help, you can ask me. As a Superman, I am still happy to help. At this moment, Peter, who was watching the show in the sky, looked at the embarrassed Tony and reminded him leisurely. No need, I haven't lost yet. Tony quickly got up from the ground, and the next moment strong flames gushed out from under his feet and he rose directly into the air. Did this guy finally remember that he is a ranged profession? Floating in the air, Tony's face was full of confidence again, and the nanoparticles in his hand flowed rapidly again, slowly turning into a huge energy cannon. There was a strong red energy that was constantly gathering, and a dangerous aura instantly enveloped Obadiah on the ground. Roar! Obadiah certainly wouldn't just stand there and be a sitting duck. He kept moving rapidly on the ground, occasionally throwing nearby objects he could grab towards Tony who was accumulating energy in the air, in an attempt to stop Tony. In fact, Obadiah's actions did have some effect. Tony was a little embarrassed while dodging rapidly flying objects, and the speed of gathering energy also slowed down a lot. But after more than 10 seconds, it finally converged to an extreme level. The red light exuded a strong and dangerous aura, and under Jarvis's aim, it instantly blasted towards Obadiah's head. I just don't believe that you can heal yourself even if your head is gone. At this moment, Tony was determined to kill. However, Obadiah on the ground seemed to be keenly aware of the attack of terrifying energy. The body, which was already dodging quickly, sped up even faster. Jarvis, you missed the target. It was these few points that caused Jarvis' accurate prediction and aim to deviate. The red energy as thick as a bucket did not hit his head, but hit the left side of his body. But even so, the terrifying energy instantly vaporized half of his body, and the red energy continued to move forward, directly piercing a bottomless hole in the ground. How is it? My trick is pretty good, isn't it? Obadiah's body collapsed to the ground with his intestines spilling out. Tony turned around slowly and showed off to Peter with pride on his face. Well, it's not bad, but it's a pity that you are happy too early. Peter's words made Tony feel a little uneasy. But it was too late. A rope suddenly flew from the ground into the air, directly tied up Tony's body, and pulled him suddenly to the ground. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that it was not a rope at all, but Obadiah's intestines that had just spilled all over the floor. Chapter 62 Gwen pulls the train, seeking follow-up reading. As Tony was pulled to the ground, Obadiah dragged his mutilated body with a hideous smile on his face. He slowly raised his right hand and held the sharp blade across his body. He tried to use the powerful pulling force to pull Tony's body onto the blade and cut him in half. Okay. Suddenly, Peter's eyes in the air fixed. Then he didn't continue watching the show. Two golden beams of light shot out of his eyes, instantly cutting off Obadiah's intestines that were tied up around Tony. The next second, his figure instantly disappeared into the air, and in the blink of an eye he appeared in front of Obadiah, and then he exhaled a breath of freezing air, freezing it directly into an ice sculpture. Then he punched the ice sculpture directly. Click! In an instant, the entire ice sculpture was completely shattered by Peter's punch, leaving no residue behind. You can be resurrected like this, you are awesome. Without even looking at his masterpiece, Peter's figure soared into the sky again and disappeared in an instant. Only Tony, who had not yet recovered from the shock, was left looking at Obadiah all over the sky with a hint of pity in his eyes. A few minutes ago, a train was speeding on a railway in the suburbs of New York. Oh my God, there are monsters in New York City again. It was almost late at night and everyone in the carriage was tired and drowsy. But suddenly a scream was heard, instantly waking up all the passengers in the car. Everyone, check your phones. It's real. There really is a monster. Just as someone was about to blame, several passengers suddenly exclaimed. Monster? Is it the same monster that Superman defeated last time? Soon, someone took out their mobile phone out of curiosity and started checking. So there really is a monster. Fortunately, it's far away from us, so we don't have to worry for now. A moment later, someone saw the latest news reporting that a monster had appeared in downtown New York City. Fortunately, their train was heading to the suburbs, so there was no need to worry. I don't know why, but New York City has been hit by so many disasters recently. Fortunately, we have Superman, otherwise. I hope they can be safe. Kind-hearted citizens prayed for the strangers, hoping they would be safe from the monsters. Ahem, does the monster you're talking about look like that? Suddenly, a passenger sitting by the window opened his eyes wide and looked out at the night sky, where a huge figure was running and jumping along with the train. What? How is it possible? Why would another monster appear here? Hearing this, someone turned and looked out the window, and instantly saw the monster running after the train. No, I don't want to die. Quickly notify the conductor, we need to stop the train immediately. The moment they discovered that a monster had appeared here, the carriage suddenly became chaotic, with all kinds of screams ringing out. Outside the train, a green monster was following the train, running and jumping. Its eyes were fixed on the speeding train, full of curiosity. It was as if a child saw his favorite toy. Suddenly, it jumped onto the roof. Boom! The huge force caused the metal roof to cave in instantly. I bought it. The passengers in the carriage were frightened at this moment and screamed, and hurriedly ran to other carriages. However, the monster did not stop on this carriage, but continued to run and jump on the roof. Bang bang bang! It was as if something heavy was rolling over the carriage. In an instant, all the passengers in the carriage realized that an unknown monster had appeared above the train. Everyone huddled together in fear, feeling helpless. Look, everyone, it's Spider-Man, she's here to save us. At such an urgent moment, someone finally discovered a figure outside the window swaying on the spider silk, and instantly exclaimed with joy. It's really Spider-Man, great, we are saved. Others also saw Spider-Man and were instantly filled with great joy. No, we have to find a way to get this guy off this train. Gwen was swinging between the tall buildings, trying to think of a way to get the monster off the train. After all, this monster has great power and little reason. A train traveling at high speed is more likely to be in danger. That's why Gwen didn't act rashly at this time. No, we can't wait any longer. Soon, Gwen discovered that the monster was almost running to the front of the car, and there was a bridge a few miles ahead. If an accident occurs and the train suddenly stops on the bridge and overturns, I am afraid that all the passengers on the train will not survive. At this moment, Gwen no longer hesitated. She suddenly shot out a spider silk and then used the power of the spider silk to rush towards the monster rapidly. Roar! Although monsters don't have much intelligence, they have very strong perception. As Gwen approached, it turned around instantly and then punched Gwen suddenly. Boom! In a hurry, Gwen could only raise one foot and collide with the monster's fist. The next moment, the monster took a few steps back. Gwen also took advantage of the momentum to roll a few times in the air and landed on the carriage. This guy is really difficult to deal with. Gwen gritted her teeth, and the collision of force almost broke her foot. Roar! The monster roared and punched the top of the train. Then the metal on the roof was torn apart directly. No, do not want. There was an unlucky guy who was right under the monster and instantly let out a terrible scream. However, the monster didn't care about all this. It just lay on the roof of the car, pulled it out with its hands, and then smashed it directly at Gwen. Not good. Gwen watched all this, but it was too late to stop it. Looking at the passengers being thrown towards him, he could only shoot out several spider silks and then avoid the impact of the passengers. Damn it, here we go again. With the help of the power of spider silk, Gwen had just rescued the passenger when her spider sense activated instantly. The next moment, several passengers were grabbed by the monster and thrown towards Gwen like cannonballs. At this point, Gwen could only cope with the situation and try to save every passenger thrown at her. Phew, it's finally over. Gwen just breathed a sigh of relief after saving all the passengers safely. When I turned around, I found that the monster had actually run to the front of the car and was lying on the window, looking inside curiously. No. Gwen quickly ran towards the monster. However, it was still a step too late. The monster seemed to have not found what it wanted, which made it very angry. It actually jumped up, then suddenly fell down, and crushed the entire control compartment at the front of the car. Then he no longer lingered and leaped directly into the distance. How to do? The control car had been completely destroyed, but the car's power system was still running at full speed. At this time, the train could not stop or control itself. In order to save everyone in the car, Gwen could only watch the monster escape. Then he quickly came to the front of the car, looked at the control car that had been crushed, and his eyes gradually became firm. Standing in front of the intact second carriage, Gwen quickly shot several spider silks towards the buildings on both sides. The next second, the extremely strong pulling force almost tore Gwen in half. What? The pain was so great that Gwen couldn't help but cry out in pain. Her strong will made her persist, and she did not let go of the spider silk in her hand. The powerful force from the spider genes and the extraordinary will burst out completely at this moment. Crunch! The enormous force left clear marks on the metal carriage at this moment. Bang bang bang! However, the spider silk kept breaking, which made Gwen, who was still trying to hold on, tremble in her heart. Suddenly, she noticed a figure appearing above the bridge 1,000 meters ahead. Great, is he here? Just when Gwen was feeling excited, she suddenly heard a heart-pounding laugh. He, since you've worked so hard, I'll make it a little more difficult for you. As a creepy laugh resounded through the void, a round ball that flashed green light and looked like a pumpkin slowly landed on the bridge and bounced a few times. Then, with a loud bang, it exploded suddenly. Fake. Looking at the blown-up bridge and the figure disappearing into the night sky, Gwen's heart was broken at this moment. Chapter 63, Dad offers sacrifice to the heaven, with boundless power. However, what happened next made her feel even more devastated. Just as she was trying her best to stop the train from continuing to move forward, so as to avoid falling onto a bridge that was blown up by some unknown bad guy several miles away, a green figure flashed by. It turned out to be the monster that had just run away, and now it turned back. Moreover, the monster turned back and jumped directly onto the roof again, then ran towards the front of the train. It seemed that its target was Gwen, who was trying to stop the train. However, the bridge that was blown up was only a few miles away. If the train cannot be stopped as soon as possible, I am afraid that all the passengers on the train. No, I must persevere. Even though the strong spider sense was constantly urging Gwen to let go of the spider silk as soon as possible. But they were all resisted by Gwen's extremely strong will. Soon, the green monster ran back to the front of the car. It slowly lay on top of the carriage and stretched its head down upside down. The bloodshot eyes and the ferocious face filled with madness just met Gwen's eyes. The scene at this moment is like a classic scene in a movie. It's just that the Beauty and Spider-Man are kissing upside down. But now it has become a passionate scene of Beauty and the Beast. Roar! The monster roared, and the fishy breath it emitted made Gwen unable to help but turn her head away. And the next moment, the spider sense that was already frantically warning became stronger again. No! With an extremely strong will, Gwen resisted the invasion of spider sense while continuing to pull hard on the spider silk. For the sake of the lives of everyone on the bus, she completely gave up on escaping at this moment. The angry monster raised his strong arms without hesitation. Using claws that could easily tear a metal roof apart, he slowly reached out to Gwen's body and gently cut the skin on Gwen's abdomen like a cat playing with a mouse. Hiss! Gwen's tight corset on her abdomen and skin were slowly torn into 3 huge wounds, and bright red blood gushed out instantly. Well! Gwen endured the severe pain and let down her guard at the moment when the monster was playing tricks on her. With the help of the spider silk, he suddenly raised his feet and kicked the monster hard in the face, kicking it away. The huge force kicked the monster dozens of meters away and it fell heavily next to the railway. Roar! However, this attack did not cause much damage to the monster, but instead completely enraged it. With a loud roar, the monster leaped up, swung its huge fist, and rushed towards Gwen, vowing to smash this annoying guy to pieces with one punch. Sorry. Until the last moment when the monster's huge fist was about to fall on Gwen, she still did not let go of the spider silk in her hand and chose to escape. Instead, he held it tighter and closed his eyes silently. Ta-da-da! Da-da-da! Suddenly, the sound of propellers and machine guns was heard, causing Gwen to open his eyes in surprise. Suddenly, a police helicopter appeared in the sky above the train. The machine gun on it was spewing dazzling flames, and countless bullets fell on the monster's body as if they were free. Don't be afraid, Spider-Man. This time, let us help you. A voice that was very familiar to Gwen sounded. The New York police finally arrived at the most critical moment. Chief George, our guns aren't working. The police officer, who was hovering in the air less than a few dozen meters away from the train and shooting at the monster, said to George helplessly. Although the bullets fired from their machine guns kept hitting the monster's body, it was difficult to cause real damage to the monster with thick skin and flesh. Oh no, the monster is angry and coming towards us. Instead, it attracted the monster's attention. That's exactly what we have to do. Let's get out of here and lure the monster away. George looked determined and gave the order without hesitation. Not good, Sheriff, get out of the way. However, just as the helicopter turned around and prepared to lead the monster away, suddenly, a broken metal rod shot straight towards the helicopter cabin like a javelin. Fortunately, the police officer nearby was quick-witted and pounced on George, otherwise the rapidly approaching metal pole might have pierced George's entire body in an instant. However, although it avoided the frontal attack, the metal rod, which carried a huge impact force, still penetrated directly into the helicopter fuselage, passed through the top of the helicopter, and disrupted the rotating propeller. In an instant, the helicopter lost its lift and fell downwards. No! Gwen screamed in despair, but it was too late to rescue the crashed helicopter. What's more, there was a whole train full of passengers waiting for her to save them. However, she knew clearly that her biological father was in that helicopter. The pain of losing her father and the strong reluctance seemed to make Gwen burst out her physical potential at this moment. The terrifying explosion of power actually caused the speeding train to slow down visibly. In the falling helicopter, everyone felt the invasion of death. My heart is filled with resentment, but I can do nothing about it. Chief George looked at the police officer next to him who was stunned by the sudden death, and his eyes became firm at this moment. Roar! The monster that was hit instantly roared in excitement. But the next moment, it looked at Gwen again with cruel eyes, and jumped up again and rushed towards Gwen. Damn monster! This time, Gwen did not close her eyes, but stared at the monster attacking her with angry eyes. Boom! Just when the punch was about to land on Gwen's body, a green figure suddenly pounced from the side, and instantly rolled into a ball with the monster, wrestling with it. The faint and pale moonlight sprinkled on the green figure. Gwen only had time to see that it looked like a giant lizard. Lizard man! Gwen didn't have time to think and continued to turn her grief into strength. After all the spider silk in her hands were torn off, she shot out several more spider silks without hesitation. The huge pulling force almost tore her whole body apart, her arms were almost dislocated, and the wound on her abdomen was bleeding continuously. Even though she was seriously injured, Gwen still did not give up. The strong willpower turned into strength, and actually slowed down the speed of the speeding train. What? Finally, with Gwen's almost crazy roar, the train finally stopped slowly before approaching the blown-up bridge. Great, we're saved! Spider-Man, good job! Countless passengers cheered excitedly, celebrating for Spider-Man, but also for themselves. Father! However, at this moment Gwen had no intention of accepting the passengers' gratitude. She used up her last bit of willpower to persist in not fainting. Slowly shooting out spider silk, rushing towards the place where the helicopter had just crashed. However, after arriving at the place where the helicopter crashed, Gwen looked at the helicopter that had turned into a ball of fire and was instantly heartbroken. Spider-Man! Great, you saved everyone! Suddenly, a police officer looked at Gwen in admiration and exclaimed excitedly. But I failed to save your director. The police officer's words did not make Gwen happy. At this moment, she saved everyone except her own father. Director? He's not dead. We were all saved by the director, but... Hearing Gwen's sad words, the police officer replied hurriedly, but the expression on his face became a little strange. What? Your director is not dead. The huge surprise made Gwen feel like she was dreaming. But he seems to have turned into a monster, too. However, the police officer's next words made Gwen's heart rise again. At the same time, he turned around and looked at the lizard man who was fighting the monster. It turned out that it was his father. Chapter 64, The Moonlight's Wail. At this moment, when Gwen learned that the lizard man was actually her father, she was surprised that her father was not dead. But the next moment, looking at his lizardman father being suppressed by another monster and blood constantly oozing from his body, he felt something was wrong again. No, don't ever give me hope and then make me despair. She used up her last bit of strength and rushed towards the two monsters that were fighting. However, the potential explosion just now has completely pushed his body to its limits. If she hadn't been worried about her father, she would have fainted from exhaustion. He staggered forward, his speed even slower than that of an ordinary person. Although both monsters use potions to transform themselves, the sources of their serums are different. The lizard man's potion is just an ordinary potion made by Professor Connors using the DNA of lizards. Although it can give humans powerful strength and transform them into lizardmen, it has a fatal side effect. That is, after transforming into a lizard man, the human genes will gradually collapse and eventually die completely. So at this moment, Chief George was undoubtedly using his own life in exchange for the lives of others. Fortunately, my efforts were worth it. While feeling the extreme pain from the continuous collapse of his body's genes, Director George finally saw that Spider-Man lived up to everyone's expectations and successfully saved a car full of passengers. At this moment, although he died, he had no regrets. Knowing that he could no longer survive the transformation, Chief George did not care about the constant damage to his body from the monster, but instead fought frantically against the monster in front of him. Even if the monster's sharp claws tore his skin, he would still give the monster a hard punch. Trade injury for injury, fight for life. Hopefully, after I'm gone, they'll have an easier time subduing this monster. This was the only belief Chief George had in his mind before his consciousness gradually faded away. Gradually, the side effects of the regeneration potion became more and more obvious. The genetic chains in the body continued to collapse. The huge power that originally filled the body was gradually disappearing. Boom! Finally, Chief George could no longer resist the powerful monster in front of him and was hit hard in the chest by a punch. Click! The ribs on his chest shattered instantly, as if a hand had directly grasped his heart. The whole person was blown away nearly 100 meters and landed right in front of Gwen, who was staggering forward. No! Gwen shouted unwillingly, and her pace suddenly accelerated. But she fell to the ground because her legs were weak. She turned a blind eye and used her hands and feet to crawl forward to the lizardman lying in a pool of blood. Finally, Gwen crawled to the side of the lizard man. He didn't care about the ugly lizard man covered in disgusting green blood. Gwen held him in her arms with all her strength. Then, for the first time, he took off his spider mask in front of others. Gwen, it turns out it's really you. At the last moment before he was about to lose consciousness, Chief George saw his daughter as if he were in a dream. Father, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to deceive you. Gwen's eyes were filled with tears, full of helplessness and sadness. Ahem, it's okay, Gwen. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, George's face was full of relief. No. I can't die as a monster. Seeing his beloved relatives at the last moment before death seemed to make George burst out with an extremely strong will. He didn't want to die as a monster in front of his beloved daughter. In an instant, the body that had originally transformed into the appearance of a lizard began to gradually fade away and gradually turned back into a normal human being. George raised his arms with difficulty and watched himself gradually transform from a monster back into a normal human being. There was no regret in his eyes anymore. Dear Gwen, you did right. With great power, comes great responsibility. His affectionate gaze for the first time affirmed everything Gwen had done before. Roar! However, just as he was about to say that wise words, he was interrupted by an untimely roar. The next moment, the monster that was ignored in the distance suddenly rushed towards the two of them. Gwen, go! At this critical moment, George's worry about his daughter made him burst out with his last bit of strength. He stood up slowly, and as a human being, he faced the surging monster without fear. The faint moonlight shone on George's slender figure, adding a sense of sadness. The hunched back made Gwen feel extremely majestic. Father, don't! Gwen's unwilling cry seemed to work. Just as the monster was about to rush towards her father, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. The oppressive figure is like a merciful god at this moment. The cloak fluttering in the wind seems to be able to dispel all fear. Well, I'm not hard-hearted enough after all. With a light punch, Peter knocked the attacking monster into a bloody dance. He slowly turned around and looked at George and Gwen. Very good. Seeing Superman coming, George instantly lost the last bit of his will and fell to the ground. The pale moonlight sprinkled on his broken body, as if the moon itself was wailing for him. Father! At this moment, Gwen felt no joy at seeing Superman defeat the monster, only sadness at losing her father. Give it to you. There may be some side effects. As for whether to use it or not, it's up to you. Peter watched everything calmly, but he couldn't help himself in the end. He took out a potion that was flashing green fluorescence and threw it in front of Gwen. Then, without hesitation, he rushed into the sky and disappeared. This is Gwen picked up the fluorescent potion on the ground and wanted to ask what it was. But the moment he looked up, Superman had already disappeared from his sight. Side effect. Gwen glanced at the potion in her hand. Then turned her gaze to her father's corpse, and her eyes suddenly became firm. Slowly raise your hand. At the same time, Peter's disappearing figure reappeared in an uninhabited desert in less than 10 seconds. However, originally the area within hundreds of kilometers was an uninhabited desert. At this moment, under his feet, there was a huge military base. Listen, everyone below. Please put down everything you are holding and leave the military base immediately. Remember, you only have 10 minutes. Don't try to take the research materials with you. Otherwise, you will bear the consequences at your own risk. Inside the base, everyone heard a majestic voice. The entire military base instantly became boiling. Who on earth dares to break into our military base? A general with grey hair and strong shoulders questioned his soldiers. General, it seems to be Mr. Superman. His men discovered the figure above the military base through satellites and detection equipment. General, what should we do now? Hearing that it was Superman, all the soldiers present fell silent. According to what he said, organize all personnel to evacuate as soon as possible and protect those scientific researchers. After pondering for a while with an extremely serious expression, the general gave the order reluctantly. Also, remember, no one is allowed to bring any research materials. Chapter 65 Solar Flare. At this moment, the entire base began to operate rapidly. In addition to the necessary soldiers, there are also dozens of scientific researchers here at this time. After all, this military base was originally established for the purpose of researching a certain special technology. However, now they can only abandon all the scientific research data they have already researched and evacuate as soon as possible. 10 minutes is not short at all. But for evacuating an entire base, the time seemed a little too tight. Fortunately, the highest commander here has ordered that there is no need to carry any information or equipment, and it is enough to just evacuate people. Chug-choo. Several helicopters took off one after another from the base, escorting the scientific researchers away from the base as quickly as possible. General, we don't have enough helicopters. Even if we ask our superiors for help now, it may be too late. What should we do? All the scientific researchers and some armed personnel left by helicopter. But there were still some soldiers left in the military base, and there were not enough helicopters to take them away. Pass on my order. From now on, all personnel will evacuate the military base on foot. Do not carry anything other than guns and communication equipment. There are still 7 minutes left. Everyone must stay 1 kilometer away from this base. Just now, the general had been observing Superman floating in the air. He really hoped that Superman would suddenly smile and say that this was just a joke on them. However, the reality is very cruel. He knew that this was not a joke played by Superman on them, but was definitely targeting the research project they were conducting here. At this time, the only ones who can save them are themselves. Even if they notify their superiors, they may not get any help. Even if Superman doesn't give them time to evacuate, he can destroy the base in an instant. I'm afraid their superiors would not dare to publicly condemn Superman. In order to protect the reputation of Superman, they would even falsely accuse them of conducting unscrupulous experimental research or even treason. Ross, you've really hurt me this time. At this time, the general regretted very much. Why did he listen to the instigation of that guy Ross and participate in the post-disaster rescue plan and come here to conduct this secret research? Finally, I took a look at the empty military base. The general had no choice but to give up everything here and left the base on foot with his soldiers. Soon, the 10 minutes Peter stipulated had passed. The next moment, Peter didn't hesitate at all. A brilliant golden energy started from the small star on his chest and gradually flowed throughout his body. The golden light on his body became more and more dazzling. In just a few seconds, it was as if a new star was rising in the sky above the military base. Look, General, what is that? About 2 kilometers away from the base, all the soldiers evacuating on foot were still running for their lives, when suddenly a cry of surprise was heard. Everyone couldn't help but look back. No, everyone get down. However, with just one glance at the bright light shining like a star, the general hurriedly gave orders. Laugh. At the moment when everyone hurriedly lay down, the sun-like light suddenly shone to its zenith. It was like a small nuclear bomb detonated over a military base. The explosion of shining light also released a terrifying heat wave. The nearest military base below was instantly melted by the high temperature of tens of thousands of degrees. What was even more terrifying was that along with the shining light, a terrifying particle storm instantly swept across the entire base. Tens of seconds later, the shining light in the sky gradually dissipated. The vast military base on the ground has long since disappeared. All that was left on the ground was a huge deep pit with a diameter of nearly 1,000 meters. In the deep pit, molten iron melted by high temperature and various liquids formed by melted sand are mixed together. It forms a strange scene that is shining with colorful light, like the surface of a lake. At the same time, the soldiers who were lying in the sand, their bodies buried in gravel, finally slowly climbed up. Even though the distance was very far, the high temperature carried by the instantaneous burst of light caused the military uniforms on their backs to be burned black. I'm afraid the skin on my back has been burned. General, we have lost contact with the outside world. The flash of light just now seems to have caused the electromagnetic waves in this area to become very chaotic, and even destroyed our communication equipment in an instant. After checking the communication device, the communications personnel hurried over to report to their superior. Was that just now, a solar flare? The general did not answer the communication soldier, but stared at the distant sky and muttered to himself. Unexpectedly, this guy seemed to have read Superman comics and knew that Superman could cause small solar flares. Don't worry, this is normal. I guess our superiors will soon find out what's going on here and send someone to pick us up. Soon, the general regained his composure and comforted everyone. However, there is one more thing he didn't say: what awaits them may not be a good result. Peter, after a solar flare breaks out, destroying the military base. The whole person flew back to the Antarctic base. Please pause for a moment and put down what you are doing. I have something to say to you. After arriving at the base, Peter did not hesitate, and his voice instantly spread to the ears of everyone in the base. In a laboratory, Reed was discussing PIM particles and portal technology with Dr. Pym. They all had a special feeling that perhaps these two technologies could work together to form a greater technology. What did Mr. Superman want to tell us? Hearing Peter's words suddenly, the two couldn't help but look at each other, their eyes full of confusion. Don't worry about it, we'll know when we get there. Although Dr. Pym had just been forced to come to this special base by Superman today, he still had some complaints in his heart. However, through this special opportunity, he met many extremely smart geniuses and witnessed many incredible black technologies. This made him temporarily accept this place and the facts of the moment. Complaints against Superman have almost completely dissipated. Soon, everyone put down the experiments they were conducting and came to the simple living room in the center of the base. Everyone, I called you here this time because I have something that requires your opinions. Peter had a calm expression and spoke slowly to everyone present in a very gentle tone. Let me first say sorry to everyone here. Most of you were kidnapped by me and brought here away from your families and relatives to conduct scientific research in this dark place. So today, I ask for the opinions of each of you. You can choose to let me take you back. Peter's slow words instantly made everyone present extremely excited. Great, we can finally get out of this damn place. Thank you, Mr. Superman. A huge surprise happened suddenly, and even made them forget everything. It was because of Peter that they were brought to this dark and ghostly place. He actually expressed his gratitude to Peter. However, only Dr. Pym had a strange expression on his face. It seemed that he had just been here for less than a day. Even if he was a temporary worker, he would not play tricks on others like this. But besides this choice, you have another choice. Looking at the surprised crowd, who were filled with curiosity following his words, Peter slowly opened his mouth and continued. Or, you can choose to join the company I'm about to start. Of course, I'm not the person in charge of this company. Dr. Otto, I hope you can set up this company on my behalf. Ignoring the surprised expressions in everyone's eyes, Peter looked at Otto beside him and spoke slowly. Chapter 66 I am Iron Man. Set up a company? I'm afraid. Faced with Peter's sudden attack, Dr. Otto was not prepared at all and was about to refuse. After all, he had devoted all his energy to his dreams in the first half of his life and had no experience in managing a company. What's more, this is not an ordinary company, the manipulator behind it is Mr. Superman. Dr. Otto, don't underestimate yourself. I believe you will be an outstanding company manager. In fact, Peter certainly would not set up a company himself, as this is a very time-consuming and energy-consuming task. However, there was no better candidate among the people present. Dr. Pym is old, and his original company is about to be taken away. Although Reed is smart, he is definitely not a good choice to run the company. Only Dr. Otto, though in this universe, has no experience in running a company. But in a certain universe, he founded Parker Industries as the ultimate Spider-Man, making himself one of the richest people in the world. Therefore, Peter would rather believe that Dr. Octopus in this universe also has the talent to manage a company. Well, Mr. Superman, thank you for your trust in me. Because of Peter's help, Dr. Otto had the opportunity to fulfill his lifelong dream, and in the spotlight of the whole world. So Dr. Otto was full of gratitude to Peter. At this moment, he no longer refused, but a trace of worry flashed across his face. But, Mr. Superman, if we want to set up a company, we may need a large amount of initial capital. Don't worry, the initial capital is not a problem. Peter's gaze turned to Princess Shurui beside him, but then slowly moved away. I just saved the life of a cocky guy. I believe he would be willing to spend a few $100 million to thank me. Peter smiled with a look of control over everything. At the same time, Tony, who had notified people to deal with the scene, had already flown back to his villa. However, with such a big thing happening, it is natural that everything will not be revealed so easily. Coulson, a senior agent of SHIELD who had been monitoring Tony's movements all the time, got the news instantly and came to Tony's villa with Tony's secretary Pepper Potts. Mr. Stark, I want to know what happened just now? What happened to the equipment on you? Only in this way can our National Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau help you completely solve this trouble. At that time, the battle between Tony and Obadiah took place on a crowded street in the city center. Although with the appearance of the monster, many pedestrians fled in panic. But some people still saw or even took pictures of Tony in the armor. Therefore, in order to avoid exposing himself to the public, Tony can only choose to cooperate with S.H.I.E.L.D. to eliminate all future hidden dangers. I'm sorry, I've told you everything I know. As for the equipment I'm wearing, that's not something your Department of Territory, Defense can get involved in. Damn, the name of your organization is really hard to pronounce. Ah. Fuck, who is this guy who's been thinking about me behind my back? Tony, who was sitting on the sofa and leisurely telling Coulson everything, suddenly sneezed. In short, I hope you can handle everything as you promised yourself. Tony slowly picked up the wine glass, took a sip, and suppressed the chill in his heart that came from nowhere. Mr. Stark, in that case, I will go back and report to my superior. Seeing that there was no more information to be dug out, Coulson stood up and prepared to leave. By the way, Mr. Stark, we have already sent people to handle all the information about your identity that may have been exposed tonight. You may need to hold a press conference tomorrow to announce your alibi at the time. Before leaving, Coulson gave Tony instructions. Oh, these guys, like government officials, are full of lies. I was there tonight. Watching Coulson leave, Tony showed a hint of sarcasm on his face. Tony, it's really dangerous tonight. Fortunately, we have Mr. Superman. Pepper looked at Tony with worry in her eyes and said thankfully. Don't worry, Peepo. Even if that guy isn't there, nothing will happen to me. After all, the armor I developed isn't made of paper. Tony saw that Pepper was worried about him, and his heart couldn't help but warm, but he still said proudly that he could defeat Obadiah even without Peter. By the way, regarding Obadiah's matter, set up an investigation team as soon as possible to investigate. Although Obadiah was dead, he left behind a lot of mess. I'm afraid there will be some unrest within Stark Industries starting tomorrow. But it's better this way, Pepper. Take advantage of this turmoil to buy back the company's shares as soon as possible. After this, I can't hand over the company to anyone else. After what happened with Obadiah, Tony seemed to have difficulty trusting other people and was ready to take complete control of the company into his own hands. You are the boss, I will do whatever you say. At this moment, Pepper has regained her image as an independent strong woman. However, tomorrow's press conference. Don't worry, I will be there in person. Tony answered as he stood up from the couch and walked towards the basement. Last night, 2 horrific incidents occurred in New York City in quick succession. 2 monsters attacked the city. Fortunately, Mr. Superman and another mysterious man wearing an unknown metal armor were there and they saved the innocent people in the end. According to some news, the monster that suddenly appeared was actually Mr. Obadiah Stane, the vice president of Stark Industries, and the mysterious man was the famous billionaire Mr. Tony Stark. Spider-Man, a true hero second only to the great Mr. Superman, protecting the citizens of New York. The military said that a military base in an uninhabited desert area was destroyed due to illegal operations by interns. Fortunately, no one was killed. The military is investigating the details. The next morning, the whole New York City was in an uproar. Less than a month later, New York City was attacked by a terrifying monster for the second time. And this time there were two of them. One is in the city and the other is in the suburbs. However, the damage caused by the monsters in the suburbs was even more serious than that in the city. If Spider-Man hadn't appeared and saved an entire train of passengers, this would have probably become the worst disaster in New York's history. This time, the media finally vindicated Spider-Man, calling him the most popular hero after Superman. Even the Daily Bugle, which has always been a dissenting voice, did not exaggerate and discredit Spider-Man this time, and reported the story normally. Of course, these news only attracted the attention of ordinary people. And more media were attracted by the upcoming press conference of Stark Industries. At the press conference, almost all New York media had arrived, waiting for Tony Stark, president of Stark Industries, who was about to take the stage to clarify last night's events. Backstage, Pepper and Coulson were instructing Tony on the speech he was about to give. "Mr. Stark, just read what's written on the manuscript. We have already settled all the problems," Coulson said to Tony with a calm expression. "Hey? I was on vacation on an uninhabited island last night? You guys are really good at making up stories." Tony glanced at the note in his hand, a little speechless, muttering, "Iron Man? This name seems not bad." Soon, Tony finished his makeup and slowly walked from the backstage to the press conference. "Mr. Stark, someone said that the mysterious man last night was you. Do you have anything to say about this?" The moment Tony came on stage, the whole scene fell into chaos. "Everyone please be quiet, about what happened last night, about some people calling me a superhero. No one calls you a superhero," a female reporter with long legs directly refuted. "Ahem, well, actually, I am Iron Man." Tony's eyes gradually became firm, and he announced without hesitation. "Wow!" There was shock at the scene and all the reporters stood up. "Yes, he is the Iron Man." S.A. Suddenly, a voice was heard in the sky, and the figure of Superman appeared above the press conference. Chapter 67 Avengers Project. As Superman appeared, he confirmed Tony's words. Those who were originally skeptical now completely believed this shocking news. In an instant, the entire scene became noisy, and countless reporters hurriedly made phone calls to report this shocking news to headquarters. While the reporters on the scene were in a panic, Tony found an opportunity to slip backstage. Just now, he just announced that he was Iron Man on a whim. After all, the two superheroes who appeared before, Superman and Spider-Man, were hiding their identities. And only he, the great Tony Stark, was not afraid of the worldly gaze and personally acknowledged his identity as a superhero. Next, wouldn't his fame be more famous throughout the world than that damn Superman? However, he never expected that the guy would come to the scene. "Tony, you." As soon as she returned backstage, Pepper looked at Tony with incredible eyes. "Ahem, let's talk about this later. Send a car to take me away from here." Tony seemed anxious and wanted to leave as soon as possible. Of course, there was one thing he kept in his heart and didn't say. That guy coming here must be up to no good. In fact, Tony's hunch was not wrong. "Why? Great Mr. Iron Man, you seem a little impatient to leave." At some point, Peter appeared beside the two of them. "Hello, Mr. Superman." It was the first time Pepper had seen Peter in person, and her tone of greeting seemed a little apprehensive. "Nice to meet you, Miss Pepper Potts." Peter greeted politely, then turned his attention back to Tony. "Since you are in such a hurry to leave, I can give you a ride." "Don't want." Tony's refusal did not work. In an instant, the two figures disappeared in front of Pepper, leaving only Tony's panicked and unwilling voice echoing. 10 seconds later, in Tony's villa, two figures suddenly appeared. "Lamb Iron Man? You think you are the, ahem, Mr. Superman, hello." As soon as the two figures appeared, a black-faced guy who blended perfectly into the corner slowly walked out. "Who are you? Why did you break into my villa? Subconsciously, he tapped the nano storage device on his chest. As the nano armor covered his entire body, Tony transformed into a laser cannon and pointed it at the stranger in front of him. Is this the armor that is easy to carry and has powerful capabilities? At this moment, there was no fear on Nick Fury's face, he just stared at the armor on Tony with burning eyes. It seemed as if he wanted to use his one eye to see what kind of incredible technology was used in it. Let me introduce myself. I am Nick Fury, the director of the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Agency. However, now, we have followed your advice and changed our name to SHIELD. Ignoring Tony's wary look, Nick Fury slowly walked towards the two men and introduced himself. Oh, so you are Coulson's boss. Tony temporarily let down his guard and put away his nano armor. But, you broke into my villa now, aren't you just trying to show off your infiltration ability as a secret agent? As Tony spoke, he leisurely walked to the wine cabinet, took out a bottle of expensive red wine, and poured it for the two of them. Nick Fury sat down opposite Tony and Peter without hesitation, then picked up the red wine Tony had poured and drank it all. Then he stared at Tony and Peter and said slowly, "Of course not. I came here to talk to you about the plan to create the Avengers." "Your Avengers, sounds like a boring band to me. Sorry, I may not be interested." Listening to Nick Fury introducing the Avengers he was about to create, Tony refused without hesitation. "Mr. Superman, are you interested? If you can join, you will definitely become the leader of all members, and the world will become a safer place because of it." Nick Fury's original target was only Tony himself. But at this moment, Tony is no longer important. If he can get Superman involved, then he will be like a cow flying to the sky, and he will be so awesome. "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. After all, I don't have the habit of revenge." After taking a sip of Tony's precious red wine, Peter refused outright. "Because my enemies will never see the sun the next day." And what he said afterwards made the two of them, including Tony, feel a chill down their spines. "Okay, well, since neither of you has any intention of joining for the time being, I'll take my leave now." Nick Fury was tactful enough to leave, because he knew that Superman would not approach Tony for no reason. "Walk slowly, don't send." As the host, Tony had no intention of seeing the guests off. Nick Fury didn't hesitate and walked out of the villa quickly. When he arrived outside the villa, Nick Fury turned around to look at the villa, then took out an old-fashioned mobile phone. But he didn't make a phone call, instead he edited a text message. "Natasha, please put aside your task for now. I need you to sneak into Stark Industries as soon as possible and investigate." After the message was sent, Nick Fury got on a helicopter that had been waiting for a long time and left without hesitation. "That annoying guy is gone. Now you can tell me what's the matter with you coming to see me again." Watching Nick Fury leave, Tony asked Peter directly without any hesitation. "Don't be so cold. I helped you last night and saved your life from your dear uncle. So, can you please express your gratitude to me appropriately?" Peter said slowly, but his words changed Tony's expression, and then he felt relieved. "Okay, how much do you need?" Tony said that any problem that can be solved with money is not a problem. Not much, just about this amount." Peter slowly extended a finger. 10 million. Tony said uncertainly. Seeing that Peter didn't speak, he continued to guess with a somewhat ugly expression, "It won't be 100 million, right? Great Mr. Iron Man, is your life only worth 100 million? Damn it, 1 billion? You might as well go rob. You're such a robber." Tony's face became even uglier. 1 billion was not a small number for him. "Please don't slander me. I am a good citizen who abides by the law." Peter smiled, but this smile made Tony feel like he deserved a beating. Of course, the prerequisite was that he could beat Peter. "Okay, 1 billion is 1 billion, give me your account." In the end, Tony had no choice but to compromise. "Just transfer the money directly to Dr. Otto's account. You should know him." Peter was not yet an adult at this time and did not have his own account. Even if he did, he naturally could not tell Tony. "Okay, you've finished the blackmail. If you have nothing else to do, leave quickly. I hope you won't come to me again in the future." Tony was helpless. As expected, it was no good thing for this guy to come to him on his own initiative. "Goodbye, dear Mr. Iron Man." With the company's startup capital in hand, Peter had no intention of staying. With a wave of his hand, he disappeared into the villa. Damn robber! Tony cursed through gritted teeth. Jarvis, transfer 2 billion from my personal account to Dr. Otto's account. Tony spoke slowly and gave orders to Jarvis. I hope this guy won't bother me again. Sir, the $2 billion has been transferred. In addition, your previous search for information about magic has made great progress. Would you like to take a look? What? Let me see. Tony instantly became very excited. He didn't expect that he would actually gain something. Sir, this is the latest news from Nepal. Explorers found a video there and after evaluation, they found no signs of any modification. As soon as Jarvis finished speaking, a virtual projection video instantly appeared in front of Tony. I saw a man in a yellow monk's robe. He rotated his hands slightly in front of him, and a halo shining with golden light appeared out of thin air. The next moment, she walked directly into the circle of light, and then the circle of light dissipated, disappearing along with the person. Is this really magic? Chapter 68 Successfully Changing Tony's Fate. The next day, in a small private plane over Nepal. Next, you guys go back on your own. Tony said to the pilot, opened the rear door, and jumped out. Mr. Stark, you forgot to bring your parachute. Amid the pilot's anxious voice, Tony had already jumped out of the plane. However, for him as Iron Man, it makes no difference whether he brings a parachute or not. Nano armor quickly covered his body. The next moment, flames burst out from under his feet and instantly rushed towards a small town below. In front of a wooden door that looked very dilapidated. Jarvis, are you sure it's here? Looking at the dilapidated wooden door, Tony couldn't believe it. Yes, sir. After much investigation, the investigators found that all the results pointed to this place. Well, I hope those wizards' magical attainments are better than their ability to repair the door. With a hint of anticipation, Tony slowly raised his hand and prepared to knock on the door. Crunch! However, before his hand was about to touch the wooden door, he found that the door had been opened from the inside. His hand almost slapped the man in the face. Come with me. The man said this with a very cold expression, then turned and left. This guy seems to be more arrogant than me. Tony looked at this indifferent guy and felt a little surprised. But he still followed in. Crunch! As Tony walked in, the dilapidated wooden door slowly closed by itself. Despite the people coming and going on the street, no one seemed to have ever noticed this dilapidated wooden door. Jarvis? Why didn't I see such a place when I was in the sky just now? After entering the door, Tony found that the environment here was very different from what he had imagined. The quaint buildings make it easy for people to feel that there is an atmosphere of paradise here. Sir, this place seems to be outside the real world. The existence of this place cannot be detected in the real world. Jarvis' answer made Tony feel incredible. Is there a strange space outside the real world? It seems that this is indeed a magical holy land. Before coming here, Tony still had some doubts about whether magic really existed here. But at this moment, he was basically certain that magic was real. Magic? I hope it can shock me more than technology. Tony thought so in his heart and quickly caught up with the indifferent guy in front of him. Soon, under the guidance of that guy, Tony came to a huge hall. In the center of the hall, a huge metal incense burner is emitting wisps of green smoke, which makes people feel as if they are floating in the air. Even my mood has become much calmer. However, Tony couldn't keep his inner peace at this moment. Because in front of him, in addition to the man in yellow monk robes whom he saw in the video yesterday, there was also a figure that made him feel extremely familiar, sitting opposite that man. Mr. Stark, I thought you would come earlier. The figure Tony was very familiar with slowly turned around. It was Peter, whom he had just met yesterday. Why are you here? Tony's face was full of shock, he had never expected that the damn Superman would arrive here before him. Welcome to Kamartaj, Mr. Stark, please take a seat. Ignoring the extremely shocked expression on Tony's face, the bald woman in a yellow monk's robe, with a face that had a neutral and noble beauty, spoke to him in a soft tone. Thanks. Tony finally recovered from his shock, walked over to Peter and slowly sat down. Mr. Stark, I already know why you're here. Raising his hand, he poured a cup of tea for Tony and said slowly. But are you really sure that you want to embark on the path of no return of magic? The next moment, Ancient One's expression became serious, and his soft voice seemed to be able to penetrate Tony's heart. Yeah, Do I really have to give up science? And practice that illusory magic instead? There is no doubt that Tony is also very conflicted at this moment. At first, he searched for information about magic in an attempt to use magic to defeat Superman. Unfortunately, that guy today had already arrived here before him. It seems that he is not afraid of the weakness of magic. So, does he still need to continue learning magic now? Ancient One, I think you should choose someone else. This guy doesn't look like a suitable candidate to inherit the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Looking at Tony, who was in a dilemma, Peter added insult to injury. Who says I'm not a good candidate for learning magic? I'm the smartest genius in the world. Perhaps it was because of Peter's words that Tony finally made up his mind. Mysterious magic? And it seems that I can inherit a seemingly awesome position as the Sorcerer Supreme. From Peter's words, Tony got a special message, that is, after he learned magic, he seemed to be able to inherit a supreme position. Although, at this time, he still didn't know what the position of Supreme Sorcerer meant. But at this moment, he finally strengthened his determination to learn magic. Besides, who said that to learn magic you have to give up science? Magic plus technology, there's a lot of potential there. Magic, like the technology you know, is just a special way for humans to understand the nature of the world and the truth of the universe. As Tony decided to study magic, Ancient One smiled and slowly introduced the origin and usage of magic. The essence of magic is actually like a special language. Magic spells are like the source code of a computer. They play a role in communication and mobilizing energy from other dimensions, forming some incredible scenes in the real world. Just like this. Following the introduction, Ancient One suddenly raised his hands, and with a special gesture, a golden energy instantly appeared in front of Tony and Peter. Is this magic? At this moment, Tony was completely attracted by the wonderful scene before him, and his eyes showed strong curiosity. There is no doubt that magic opens another door to the essence of the universe. Although it sounds nice, it's a pity that Marvel's magic has already gone down a remote path. Looking at the special lines faintly visible between Ancient One's eyebrows when he was using magic, Peter knew very well that this was the after effect of her stealing the energy of the dark dimension. Magic in the Marvel world is actually a form of borrowing. The mage borrows energy from other dimensions, but must return it in another form in the end. Only someone like Ancient One, who has a powerful god of magic backing him up, would have the capital to fight against Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension. Jarvis, did you write down all her movements? On the other hand, Tony, who was already deeply curious about magic, asked Jarvis to record Ancient One's actions without hesitation. I believe you already have a basic understanding of magic. However, if you want to learn more advanced magic in the future, I'm afraid you will need to stay here for a while. Soon, Ancient One waved his hand to dispel the magic that was shining with golden light in front of him, then stared at Tony and spoke slowly. No problem. I lack everything except time. Besides, I don't think magic is that difficult. Tony is very confident. Even though he is not good at learning magic, he still has Jarvis, a cheating device that can defeat the magic. In that case, Master Caecilius, please take Mr. Stark to his room to rest. Ancient One slowly spoke to the wizard who brought Tony in with a cold face. Goodbye, Ancient One. The Reverend. Tony glanced at Peter beside him, then without hesitation, he followed the indifferent guy out of the hall. Mr. Superman, or Mr. Peter Parker, are you here just to confirm whether he will pursue the path of magic? As Tony left, Ancient One looked at Peter with a hint of inquiry in his eyes. Of course, it's not just that. In fact, I am also quite curious about magic. What Peter said was certainly not what he was thinking. He came here just to confirm whether this would change Tony's future. Congratulations to the host for initially changing Tony Stark's fate and receiving a reward. Chapter 69, Rushing to the Sun. Ancient One. Since this guy has chosen to stay here to learn magic, I will take my leave now. It has been confirmed that Tony's fate has been preliminarily modified by the system at this moment. Peter naturally would not stay here and said goodbye and left directly. Do you want me to ask someone to take you there? Guyi maintained a kind smile from beginning to end. No need, I can do it myself. Peter stood up without hesitation, walked out of the hall accompanied by Ancient One, and then soared into the sky. Although this is a special magical dimension outside the real world, it seems that there are no obstacles at all for Peter. Venerable Ancient One, the newcomer has been settled in. When Ancient One was looking up at Peter's disappearing figure, the indifferent wizard had already settled Tony and returned. "Thank you for your help, Master Cassilis." Guyi slowly turned around and expressed his gratitude to Cassilis. "Your Excellency Ancient One, Mr. Superman is here this time for..." After hesitating for a moment, Cassilis couldn't help but ask with some curiosity. After all, before this, their magic world and superhumans had never had any intersection. He just came here to confirm some things. Ancient One looked at Peter's figure again and said slowly. "Well, let's not talk about him anymore. Master Cassilis, if I remember correctly, you have been in Camartage for 2 years." Guyi turned his gaze to Cassilis, his eyes seemed to be recalling something. "Yes, Your Excellency. I also want to thank you for taking me in when I was so desperate 2 years ago. You allowed me to get in touch with mysterious magic and opened the door to another world for me." At this time, although Cassilis's face was still cold, his eyes revealed deep respect. At the beginning, his wife and children died in an accident, and he fell into depravity for a long time until he met the Ancient One. "So now, have you found the answer you were so eager to find?" Guyi stared at Cassilis with an inexplicable emotion in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Ancient One. I was overwhelmed with grief at the time, so I was eager to find a way to resurrect my relatives." At this time, Cassilis' expression was surprisingly calm, and he seemed to no longer feel great sorrow for the death of his loved ones. "However, after your teachings, I have come to terms with the fact that magic is not omnipotent. Even if there is a way to revive my loved ones, I am afraid it will cost an extremely huge price. Although the death of my loved ones was an accident, it was also destined by fate. After all, individuals cannot violate the laws of the universe. Next, I will dedicate my entire life to Camartage, forever protecting the reality of Earth from being invaded by creatures from other dimensions." As he spoke, Cassilis' expression was one of relief without any disguise, although he still mourned his deceased relatives. But he will not violate the laws of nature in order to revive them, nor will he use forbidden magic. He even vowed to protect Camartage and the reality of Earth for the rest of his life. "Well, Master Cassilis, in that case, it will be your turn to teach the new mage." Guyi's eyes flickered, and he slowly gave instructions to Cassilis. Then he turned around and walked back into the hall. In the air, Peter, who had just left Camartage, slowed down his flying speed. The consciousness is immersed in the system, taking stock of the recent gains. He had just completed the mission of changing Tony's fate and was rewarded with tens of thousands of points. The system mall was also successfully opened. "Let me see what good things are in the mall." Peter was very curious about what was in the system mall. He remembered that it seemed to have various Superman templates. Golden Superman template, Supreme Superman template, Thinking Superman template, Silver Superman template, Doomsday Superman template. Fuck, is the system mall so awesome? It has almost every template in the comics. At just one glance, Peter was attracted by the dazzling variety of Superman templates. Unfortunately, it requires a little more points. However, although those powerful Superman templates are attractive enough, the points required are millions or even tens of millions. It's totally beyond his ability to afford at this moment. Of course, in addition to those superhero templates in the comics, there are also some cheaper templates, such as Welling Super Template, Reeve Super Template, Brandon Super Template, Cage Super Template, Middle-Aged Super Template, From Superman and Lois, and the Weakest Henry Super Template. Well, these templates are not as expensive as comic templates. Unfortunately, the prices range from hundreds of thousands to millions. Especially the Reeve Super Template, which has a price comparable to that of the comic template, perhaps because it can reverse the Earth's time at superluminal speed. Another special template is the Middle-Aged Super Template, which has 2 versions. One is the ordinary version, which is relatively cheap. The other is the Pseudo-Gold Super Template, which is as expensive as the Reeve Super Template. Ordinary templates also have the potential to evolve into Pseudo-Gold Super, but they need to go to the core of the sun to absorb energy, and there is a possibility of failure. The more expensive one should be the stage after it enters the core of the sun, when it possesses the powerful force to separate the 2 universes. Okay, is the system mall reminding me that I'm just a nobody who can't afford anything? Peter was a little disappointed. It was a torture to see so many templates powerful enough to destroy the universe but not having enough points to buy them. Fortunately, these points do not mean he can't buy anything. In addition to Superman's various powerful templates, the System Mall also sells various things that exist in the Marvel world. Special materials such as vibranium, adamantium, URU metal, world tree trunk, Yaka metal, etc. are all for sale. The price is also surprisingly cheap, the same as gold and sand, only 1 point per kilogram. Other special items, like vibranium shields, iron armors, Thor's hammer, storm axe, spear of eternity, even infinity gems, heart of the universe, reality modifiers, etc. are all for sale. Unfortunately, perhaps because of the uniqueness of these items, the price is much higher than the materials. One Thor's hammer costs 50,000 points, and infinity gems require hundreds of millions of points. It's not cost-effective at all. However, with the opening of the mall, the way to obtain points is not limited to tasks and changing the fate of characters. Saving people from disasters such as floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, etc. can earn corresponding points. Even if you create a disaster, you can still earn points. Well, if I learn from Thanos to collect the Infinity Stones and destroy the entire universe, then... Peter didn't dare to think about it any further, for he was afraid that he would not be able to control himself and do this. When his consciousness left the System Mall, Peter suddenly remembered that it seemed that his battlesuit mission had not been handed in yet. Submit the task of manufacturing the battlesuit. Peter submitted the task without any hesitation. Congratulations to the host, the battlesuit manufacturing task has been completed, and the reward is the middle-aged super template, normal version. Note, the template can only be merged, not replaced. Damn, why is it just the normal version? If it was a fake gold super template, I would have taken off directly. Peter was a little worried. If he rewarded the fake Jin Chao, wouldn't he save millions of points and take off directly? But, forget it. No matter how small a mosquito is, it's still meat. Let's fuse it together. As Peter chooses template fusion. The next moment, an incomparably powerful force suddenly appeared in his body. The terrifying force increased its original strength by nearly 100 times. Holy crap, an ordinary template is so powerful? Is it because he is middle-aged and has been exposed to the sun for decades? Peter did not expect this result. His originally slow flying speed, which had just exceeded the speed of sound, directly increased to nearly 100 times the speed of sound after his power suddenly increased. If it's in the universe? Wouldn't it be possible for me to exceed the speed of light? The next moment, Peter changed direction without any hesitation and rushed straight into space. Sun. After arriving in space, Peter looked at the star shining with dazzling light, and a certain thought in his heart could no longer be suppressed. The whole person accelerated directly in the space, turned into a dazzling stream of light, and rushed straight towards the sun. Chapter 70 Awakening the Power of Thunder. The Sun, the most massive celestial body in the solar system, is also the only star in the solar system. Without the Sun, the entire solar system would cease to exist. But the billions of humans and even countless living things on Earth cannot lose the Sun. Otherwise, we might have to start the Wandering Earth project. The surface of the Sun has a high temperature of thousands of degrees, which can destroy almost any substance. But today, a bright stream of light is rushing straight towards the Sun in the vast universe at an extreme speed that exceeds the speed of light. Then it stopped near the Sun in an instant. Is this the Sun? Although we can see the Sun every day on Earth, it is far less shocking than seeing it with your own eyes at such a close distance. The strong solar wind swept up a powerful ion storm, which was so high that it was about to touch Peter's body at that moment. At this moment, the Sun released the purest radiation energy, which was constantly merging into Peter's body. Even the golden solar storm that continued to rise seemed to be attracted by Peter's body, lingering around him, surging huge energy into his body. At this moment, every cell in Peter's body seemed to have life and was beating like a heart. Extremely active cells constantly absorbed the Sun's energy. After Peter merged with the template, his strength, which had already increased hundreds of times, increased dramatically again. In less than an hour, Peter felt that all the cells in his body were full for the first time. However, the Sun still has an extremely strong attraction to Peter, as if it wants him to throw himself into the core of the Sun. At this moment, Peter looked at the Sun that was so close to him, with some hesitation in his eyes. Let's do it next time. In the end, Peter gave up his bold idea of diving into the core of the Sun. The whole person turned around and headed towards the universe away from the Sun, rapidly transforming into a stream of light at a speed even faster than before. In the distant Asgard, Heimdall is still diligently guarding the Rainbow Bridge. His special eyes were constantly watching the 9 realms, trying to find out if there was anything special happening in the 9 realms. Suddenly, he remembered the new god of Midgard who had defeated Thor, crushed Thor's hammer, and even forced Odin away. There was some hesitation in his eyes. But the next moment, his expression became firm and his eyes turned to look towards Midgard. How is this possible? In such a short time? He has become so powerful. However, the moment his eyes tried to look at the new god of earth, they were bounced back by a dazzling light. At this moment, even though he possessed the strongest eyes in the 9 realms, his eyes were still stung by the strong light and felt a dull pain in them. After several minutes, his eyes gradually recovered. However, he no longer dared to set his sights on the new god of Midgard. That guy has become so powerful in such a short time. Does Thor really have a chance to defeat him and wash away his humiliation? At this moment, Heimdall couldn't help but wonder whether even Thor, the son of Odin, had a chance to defeat that terrifying guy. As he thought about it, Heimdall's gaze unconsciously turned towards the place where Thor was exiled. The first thing that caught my eye was an extremely huge tree. Its dense branches and leaves seemed to be able to cover the entire 9 realms. The branches extending from the trunk have disappeared into the void, making it difficult to see the end and impossible to tell how huge it is. As his eyes moved, he soon saw a familiar figure standing under the world tree. However, at this moment, he switched his legs and head, and used the vines on the world tree to tie up his legs, and fell under the world tree. Your Highness Thor, until now, has he not awakened the power of thunder in his body? Originally, Heimdall was full of confidence in his friend Thor, the god of thunder. I believe that even without Thor's hammer, he can rely on his strong will to integrate the blood of Thor and awaken the power of thunder. But after that glance just now, he suddenly realized that Thor's potential seemed to be nothing compared to that terrifying guy. He had been observing Thor during his exile. It was discovered that he was depressed for a while, and then for some unknown reason, he fell under the world tree. However, the world tree is not like other ordinary plants. Falling under the world tree is something that an ordinary person cannot do without an extremely strong will. Even with the physique of an Asgardian god, Thor only managed to hold on for less than a minute the first time, and his will was almost crushed. However, as Thor continued to try, he was able to persist longer and longer. Heimdall could clearly feel that Thor's will was growing. Until today, Thor had been able to last a full 4 hours. However, today, Heimdall discovered that Thor was a little different from before. Is this a sign of the awakening of the power of thunder? Faint flashes of electricity appeared on the body that fell under the world tree. As time passed, the electric light became brighter and brighter, and it kept flowing over his body. Thor, is he finally going to awaken the true power of thunder? At this moment, as Thor's best friend, Heimdall was sincerely happy for Thor. Suddenly, Thor's eyes, which were originally closed, suddenly opened. However, the original eyes could no longer be seen in his eyes. Instead, 2 shining silver lights bloomed instantly. The next moment, the brilliant lightning surrounding Thor's body suddenly burst out with an extremely powerful momentum. As lightning flashed, the vines of the world tree that were tied to his feet were instantly freed. Thor's body also completely separated from the world tree and fell to the ground. Boom! While falling, Thor suddenly changed the direction of his body and landed on the ground handsomely on one knee. Great, I succeeded! I finally awakened the power of thunder. Slowly standing up, looking at the bright electric light lingering above his hands, Thor suddenly laughed wildly towards the sky. Heimdall, who saw all of this, was as excited as Thor. Without hesitation, he opened the Rainbow Bridge and brought Thor back to Asgard. Heimdall? Did you see that? I succeeded, I really succeeded. Thor, who had just returned to Asgard, opened his arms, which were filled with the power of thunder, and showed them to his best friend Heimdall. Click! In the sky of Asgard, which was usually calm all year round, thick dark clouds suddenly gathered, and a flash of lightning suddenly burst out, illuminating the entire Asgard. This rebellious sun finally did not let me down this time. In the magnificent hall, Odin, wearing golden armor and holding the Spear of Eternity, felt the sudden thunder. The fatigue on his face that could not be concealed disappeared in an instant. That stupid guy actually did it. However, Loki's expression suddenly changed in the hall. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of Thor's absence to regain the throne of Asgard. However, there was still one step missing. Heimdall, come with me to see my father. I want to tell him the good news. At this moment, Thor was as excited as a child, calling Heimdall to go see Odin. And that guy, I must defeat him this time and wash away all the humiliation I have suffered. Then, as if he remembered something, the expression on his face became extremely firm. No need, Thor. I believe His Majesty the God King already knows everything. Moreover, His Majesty the Divine King once told me that after you awaken your thunder power, I will ask you to go to Nidavi to forge a new weapon. Heimdall's excited expression gradually faded, and then without waiting for Thor to refuse, he opened the rainbow bridge again. The beam of light swept through Thor's body and instantly gushed towards Nidavi where the dwarves were. Chapter 71 Dinner at Stellar Technology. One evening a few days later. After a period of preparation, a new company controlled by Peter behind the scenes is finally about to be officially established. However, because the company was established in a hurry, there was not enough time to build a stand-alone building for their company. We can only rent a building in the bustling downtown area of New York and use it as the company's office building temporarily. With Tony's friendly sponsorship, the money problem was easily solved. What's more, Dr. Otto is a person who is rumored to have an inexplicable connection with Superman. Now that he has founded a company, even the government dare not strangle him. And this is the real reason why the company was established so quickly. As the company was established, Dr. Otto also demonstrated his extraordinary business talent. Soon after the company was established, a luxurious dinner was planned, inviting elites from all walks of life, as well as some well-known rich people and many media. The purpose is to establish the company's reputation thoroughly at the very beginning of its establishment. Peter, who is the person in charge of the company behind the scenes, naturally also received an invitation to the dinner. However, the reason he received the invitation was because of Dr. Otto's intern, Spider-Gwen. Okay, about me being the boss behind the scenes, and having to be invited by my classmates to attend my own company's dinner party. This is really a joke comparable to the chairman being blocked outside by his own company's security guards. Wearing a somewhat retro suit, Peter slowly walked down from Uncle Ben's classic car. As Peter got out of the car, Gwen, who was not far away and was wearing a beautiful evening dress, immediately noticed him and walked quickly towards him with a smile. Come on, Peter. Uncle Ben looked at the pretty girl walking towards them, gave Peter an encouraging look, and then drove away without any intention of being a third wheel. Student Parker, you're finally here. Was that Uncle Ben just now? Soon, Gwen came to Peter, looked at the old car leaving, and said curiously. Yes, Uncle Ben sent me here. Well, remember to take me to say hello to him when you get back. Now, let's go in first. As she spoke, Gwen led Peter through the bustling crowd outside and into the banquet hall. As for the scene in the novel where the character was harassed by security personnel, it did not happen. It seems that quite a few people are attending. After entering the hall, Peter discovered that there were not much fewer people here than outside. However, there were more reporters from small media outlets outside who had not received an invitation and were squatting outside hoping to capture some big news. Everyone in the hall is an elite from all walks of life, senior political officials and mainstream media, as well as heads of well-known companies. Of course, our newly established company is not a small company. Gwen seemed to know some inside information and explained it to Peter in a low voice. I heard that the big boss behind our company is none other than Mr. Superman. How did you know? Peter was curious, did that guy Otto even tell his students this? Of course. I guessed. Gwen looked nervous, as if she was about to reveal some big secret, but suddenly she smiled brightly. Haha, I was just kidding. I asked my instructor about this and he scolded me and told me not to believe in such rumors. But I think this may not be a rumor. Gwen said as she led Peter into the center of the hall. In fact, this rumor has spread to all walks of life in the upper class. Otherwise, they really couldn't imagine that Dr. Otto was originally an unknown scientist with some abilities. How did it suddenly transform itself and not only obtain huge financial support, but also build this company so quickly? Peter also saw many familiar faces at the dinner. For example, Tony's personal secretary Pepper, and those scientists and their friends who chose to stay in the company and continue their scientific research and were kidnapped by him. It is worth mentioning that after Peter asked last time, only 5 people out of a dozen chose to let Peter send them back to their hometowns, because the place where they lived before was too far away from New York. The remaining scientists, including Reed, Zhao Halen, Selvig, and others, chose to join the company. After all, it's nice to take shelter under a big tree. What company could have more potential than the one founded by Superman? Soon, as the time came to 7 o'clock in the evening, the dinner officially began. Peter sat in front of a remote seat in the corner and watched with interest as Dr. Otto slowly walked onto the stage and began his speech before the dinner began. Of course, sitting here does not mean discriminating against him because he is a poor boy. But Peter specifically requested it. After all, the other tables are filled with elites from all walks of life, and their real purpose of coming here is certainly not to eat and drink. The purpose is not only to investigate the background of this company, but also to look for bigwigs in other industries to see if there are any opportunities for mutual cooperation. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending the dinner hosted by Stellar Technology Industries. Stellar Technology, just like our name, our development direction is to explore the truth of the universe. Our journey is to the sea of stars. Dr. Otto, wearing an expensive suit, slowly walked onto the stage, with the 4 metal tentacles behind him dancing gently, like a flexible octopus. It is worth mentioning that Dr. Otto's original simple suppression chip had already been replaced. At this time, there was basically no possibility that his will would be controlled by the tentacle artificial intelligence due to chip damage. Excuse me, Dr. Otto, what is the main business of your company? As Dr. Otto was giving his impassioned speech, a reporter suddenly stood up and asked. Our company operates a wide range of businesses, from energy internet to basic materials and nanotechnology. We will explore more in the future. Of course, our main business today is medical care. Medical care? Isn't this a bit too cross-border? As Otto continued his story, everyone present felt a little unbelievable. If they were in the energy business, it would seem normal to everyone. After all, they still remember the artificial star that illuminated the New York night sky a few days ago. But now, they have suddenly changed their mind and said that they want to focus on the medical industry. Excuse me, Dr. Otto, what do you mean by medical treatment? The reporter continued to ask questions tactfully. As we all know, there are countless disabled people in the world, and countless people are troubled by various diseases. We will soon launch an advanced nanobiomedical chamber and a special medicine that can regenerate severed limbs. We will name it the regeneration medicine. If Dr. Otto, who had no identity or background, had said this before, he would definitely have been found dead on the street the next day, and no one would have known how he died. But now, with the powerful Superman as his backing, Dr. Otto has a strong confidence on his face. A potion that can regenerate severed limbs? How is that possible? In an instant, everyone present was shocked beyond words by what Dr. Otto said, and the originally quiet dinner scene suddenly became noisy. Most people find it hard to believe that someone can actually regenerate a severed limb. If this technology is true, it will definitely receive the highest honor in the scientific community. Excuse me, Dr. Otto, do you have any plans to cooperate with our military? Suddenly, a general with a star on his shoulder stood up and asked Dr. Otto with an excited look on his face. Unfortunately, we. Everyone, look, what is that? Looks like a demon with a green mask. Just when Dr. Otto wanted to refuse to cooperate with the military, things outside suddenly became chaotic. Boom! The next moment, a huge explosion suddenly sounded. Oh no, someone is attacking the scene, quickly organize the evacuation. I saw a guy with a strange-looking aircraft and a devil mask on his face suddenly appeared above the scene. Chapter 72 Dr. Octopus vs. Green Goblin. With the sudden appearance of the Green Goblin, the scene instantly became extremely chaotic. Ha ha ha! A creepy laugh sounded in the air, making the people who were fleeing in panic feel as if they were being stared at by a madman. Damn you! How dare you ruin the dinner party I held? Dr. Otto himself is a weak scientist. But if you count the powerful metal tentacles behind him, he can be said to be Dr. Octopus who can compete with Spider-Man. At this moment, the sudden appearance of the madman caused chaos at the dinner party. His originally kind expression was now filled with intense anger. Hey, you annoying guys, just go to hell. The Green Goblin ignored the ordinary people who were fleeing in panic, and instantly arrived at the military camp on the skateboard flying device under his feet. Even though he has another personality, hatred for the military still fills the Green Goblin's heart. The strong hatred made the Green Goblin throw a round pumpkin bomb at the senior officials of the military camp without hesitation. However, suddenly, a metal tentacle stretched out quickly from a distance. He caught the pumpkin bomb in the air with incredible precision, and then suddenly threw it back towards the Green Goblin in the air. "Who's stopping me?" The Green Goblin dodged the pumpkin bomb thrown back at him with a look of surprise, and then looked at Dr. Otto on the stage with a sharp gaze like an eagle. Boom! The pumpkin bomb exploded in the air, bursting into a dazzling ball of fire. Ah! Run quickly! The explosion that happened so close instantly made the scene even more chaotic. Countless people fled from this dangerous place in panic. "Damn you, I'm going to make you pay!" At this moment, the expression on Dr. Otto's face became even more angry. A good dinner party, an opportunity to promote their company's reputation, was ruined by this sudden guy. This was something he couldn't tolerate at all. The next moment, the angry Otto instantly transformed into Dr. Octopus. The metal tentacles behind him gradually extended as his consciousness grew. Slowly lifting his body up into the sky, facing the Green Goblin who was standing on a flying vehicle in the air. The next moment, the other two tentacles stretched out rapidly and grabbed the Green Goblin in the air. There was a strong glimmer of madness in the Green Goblin's eyes. At the moment when the rapidly extending tentacles were about to grab him, he exerted force with his feet, and the aircraft instantly carried him away for a distance. The metal tentacle almost brushed past his body as it moved behind him. "Hey hey hey!" Suddenly, the Green Goblin burst into creepy laughter again. Then he actually grabbed the metal tentacle. After using the potion, a force of more than 10 tons suddenly erupted at this moment, as if trying to pull Dr. Octopus in front of him. "Hiss, this guy has great strength." The moment they came into contact, Otto was surprised to find that this guy was not only mentally insane, but also had a terrifying power that was not like that of a human. It was actually able to compete with his metal tentacles. And Dr. Otto will not be defeated so easily. The two tentacles under his feet were almost deeply embedded in the ground, resisting the Green Goblin's pull. At the same time, the only tentacle left above once again spread towards the Green Goblin in the air at an extremely fast speed. Boom! Hit! And this time, perhaps because he was not in a hurry to dodge, Dr. Otto's other tentacle was lucky enough to knock the guy away directly, and he even broke away from the aircraft under his feet and fell directly to the ground. "Hey hey hey!" Just as Dr. Otto was about to retract his tentacles and chase after the falling Green Goblin, he suddenly heard him burst into sinister laughter again. Suddenly I felt something was wrong. The flying vehicle in the air was summoned instantly and successfully caught the Green Goblin who was about to fall to the ground. "Oh no! Is that a bomb?" The next moment, Dr. Otto saw that there was a pumpkin bomb stuck in the tentacle he had retracted. "It's probably too late to take it out now. Careful!" Suddenly, a voice came from the other side. The next moment, a silver-white spider silk came from the air and accurately hit the pumpkin bomb held in the tentacle. Then he exerted force suddenly and pulled the bomb out. However, due to the reaction force, the bomb flew towards Spider-Man. "Get out of the way!" Looking at Spider-Man who suddenly appeared and helped him, Dr. Otto shouted anxiously. In fact, Gwen's body shuddered the moment the pumpkin bomb approached. Then he suddenly shot out a spider silk to the side and twisted his body with force. Boom! With a loud explosion, Gwen was unable to completely avoid the blast. Her body was blown away by the shock wave and fell heavily to the ground. "He, 2 against 1, you don't follow martial ethics, I won't play with you anymore." The Green Goblin excitedly looked at the chaos he had caused in the air, and then prepared to evacuate. However, before evacuating, the Green Goblin took out all the pumpkin bombs he was carrying almost instantly. With his hands open, there were more than a dozen pumpkin bombs between his fingers. Then he threw the bomb in his right hand toward the crowd fleeing in panic on the ground on his left. But the bomb in his left hand was thrown towards the crowd on his right. The next moment, he turned around and was about to drive away calmly in the aircraft under his feet. No! Gwen and Dr. Otto watched all this and could only watch the Green Goblin leave. But he ran non-stop towards the nearest point where the pumpkin bomb would land, trying to prevent it from falling into the crowd. Gwen was lucky. She was able to shoot out several spider silks in a short period of time and accurately stick to the pumpkin bomb scattered in the air. But Dr. Otto was not able to do that. With only 4 tentacles, he could not completely stop more than 10 bombs. Ah! I don't want to die. Looking at the bombs falling rapidly from the sky, the people on the ground were almost scared silly. They squatted on the ground with their heads in their hands, screaming in panic. Just as the bomb was about to hit the ground and explode, taking away dozens of lives. Suddenly, all the pumpkin bombs in the air disappeared in an instant. What? The Green Goblin, who was trying to escape, suddenly felt a flash before his eyes, and then a figure full of oppression appeared. Sorry, it's not 2 against 1 now, it's 3 against 1. Great, it's Superman. We're saved. At this moment, someone saw clearly the majestic figure in the sky. It was the human hero Superman. At this moment, Peter looked at the Green Goblin in front of him calmly, slowly opened his hands, revealing those shining pumpkin bombs. Beep, beep, beep. As the life-threatening beeping sound from the pumpkin bomb became more and more rapid, there was also a glimmer of fear in the Green Goblin's eyes. The next moment, he hurriedly tried to control the aircraft to move backwards and escape from the range of the pumpkin bomb explosion. But it's too late. Boom boom boom. A series of explosions sounded instantly, and balls of flames as dazzling as fireworks bloomed in the air. Even as the Green Goblin, he was unable to escape unscathed from the explosion of a dozen pumpkin bombs. He was thrown out and fell heavily to the ground. The mask on his face was blown to pieces, leaving only a small half hanging on his face, revealing the face of Norman Osborn underneath. Is that you? Mr. Norman Osborn? At this moment, some people who knew him looked at him in disbelief. Mr. Superman, I was wrong. That was not me at all. I was controlled. Suddenly, Osborn took off the half of the mask on his face, knelt on the ground, and apologized repeatedly to Peter in the air. However, without almost anyone noticing, the aircraft in the air slowly accelerated, with a sharp blade extending from the front, and attacked Peter from behind. Sorry, your acting is so poor. Peter's eyes gradually emitted a red light, and the next moment hot rays of light gushed out. The dazzling light made everyone present close their eyes. Clang! It lost control of the flight and fell directly to the ground. P.S. Please read on, and give me recommendation votes and monthly votes. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 73, Observing the Cosmic Storm? You are too narrow-minded. Shocked. The true identity of the madman who attacked the dinner party has been exposed. It turned out to be him. Osborn Industries was shut down by the government, and many illegal activities were revealed. A 7.2 magnitude earthquake occurred in an Asian island country, affecting more than 1 million people. The next day, the New York media was almost completely flooded with news about last night's dinner party. As the Green Goblin's true identity was revealed, it was none other than Norman Osborn, chairman of Osborn Industries. In just less than a day, the once huge Osborn Industries collapsed completely overnight. Countless shareholders sold their shares at low prices, but there was no fool enough to take them. With Osborn Industries being seized and forcibly closed by the government, the matter came to a temporary end. But the impact of this incident did not stop there. At this time, people who originally did not believe that stellar technology had any connection with Superman completely believed this rumor after this incident. More importantly, everyone witnessed Superman's rage with their own eyes. I also understand that reality is not the beautiful comic world after all, and Superman in the real world will not stick to the ridiculous principle of not killing. This also makes the upper-class people treat all matters related to Superman more cautiously. A volcano called Cleveland, located in the Aleutian Islands in central Alaska. I suddenly became very active today. The magma inside the volcano rolled violently, like a boiling oil pan. Thick volcanic ash was the first to spew out from the crater. It came with overwhelming force, covering the sky like a thick dark cloud. The enormous pressure caused the mountains around the volcano to begin to collapse, and along with the thick volcanic ash, it rushed towards the nearby areas like an avalanche. Oh no, it's a volcanic eruption, everyone run away. As thick volcanic ash covered the entire sky, all the residents of the town closest to the volcano realized the seriousness of the problem and began to flee without hesitation. However, accompanied by a roar that seemed to come from the god of fire, the crater began to spew out hot magma that was shining red. The originally dark sky was instantly painted a fiery red. Human beings seem so insignificant in the face of nature and in this spectacular doomsday scene. Everyone stopped running and stared blankly at the sky that was burned red by the flames. They knew it was too late to escape now. Look, what is that? It's Superman. Great, Superman is here to save us. Just when everyone felt that they were about to die in this sudden volcanic eruption, a figure quickly crossed the sky above, heading towards the flames that covered the sky and the sun. Will he succeed? At this moment, everyone had this question in their mind. After all, in the face of angry nature, human beings seem so insignificant, even superhumans are so insignificant. Please, we must succeed. However, they would rather believe in miracles. Volcanic eruption? No big deal. As Peter came to the top of the crater, he blew his signature freezing breath towards the crater without hesitation. The force was hundreds of times stronger than before, making Peter's freezing breath also extremely powerful at this moment. Almost in an instant, the frozen mist that sparkled with crystal clear light completely enveloped the huge active volcano below that was erupting magma. Crunch! Accompanied by an uncomfortable sound. The hot magma cooled down almost instantly and was frozen into a lump. In less than 10 seconds, the volcano that was still erupting turned into an iceberg covered by ice. Great, Superman succeeded. Amid the excited shouts of everyone and the system prompt in his mind that a large number of points had been earned, Peter nodded in satisfaction and then flew directly into the sky. The top floor of Stellar Technologies' temporary office building in New York City. A figure flew in without any disguise. Since most people already knew about it, Peter simply stopped pretending. Actually, I am the company's CEO. I am telling you. Peter entered the building and went straight to the closed laboratory without hesitation. Mr. Superman, you are here. As Peter walked into the laboratory, Reed, who was conducting a special experiment, stopped the experiment and was the first to speak and greet him. How is it? Can the PIM particles reduce the size of the portal? Nodding at Reed in response, Peter looked at the huge portal device located in the laboratory and asked curiously. Reed had previously proposed to him the idea of using PIM particles to shrink the portal, which reminded him of the portal gun used by Mr. Rick in a certain animation. Therefore, Peter mentally supports Reed in conducting experiments in this area. Of course, everything must be done under his supervision. Otherwise, Peter was afraid that one day he would open the door of the laboratory and be greeted by a bunch of zombies. Mr. Superman, this experiment is very complicated. The portal is different from an artificial star and cannot be shrunk by ordinary means. As for your idea of making it into a toy gun, it seems a bit far-fetched now. Reed had a conflicted look on his face, and he really wanted to dissuade Peter from making the portal into a toy gun. Ahem, that's all I said. Peter explained somewhat awkwardly. Suddenly, the door of the laboratory was opened again. Reed, look. That cosmic storm is about to, hello, Mr. Superman. A burly bald man suddenly ran in and shouted excitedly to Reed, but before he could finish his words, he saw Peter in the laboratory. Mr. Superman, this is my good friend since childhood, Ben Graham, he is now a member of the company. Reed looked at Peter with some curiosity and quickly introduced him. Hello, Mr. Graham. Mr. Superman, you can just call me Ben. Thank you for giving us such a good opportunity. Ben seemed very excited. Okay, Ben, what is that cosmic storm you were talking about? Peter nodded with a smile, then asked curiously. Well, let me explain. Mr. Superman, before you recruited me, cosmic storms were exactly what I was researching. At that time, I predicted that the cosmic storm would pass through the solar system in a few months and would be very close to the Earth. So I wanted to observe the cosmic storm up close, maybe I could get the secret of human origin. Unfortunately, no one supported me to do this at that time, until I met you. At this moment, Reed's expression was a little sad. No one could have imagined that after being kidnapped by Superman, he would have the opportunity to realize his previous dream plan. So, Ben, what about that cosmic storm you were talking about? The honest Ben first glanced at Reed, and after the other nodded, he no longer hesitated. Mr. Superman, according to our detection, the cosmic storm is approaching the solar system and may reach the vicinity of the Earth in less than a month. Reed also showed a hint of excitement in his eyes, and couldn't help but continue to speak. So it seems that we will soon be able to take a spaceship to space and prepare to observe the mysterious cosmic storm up close. Spacecraft? Simple observation. It's smaller, the layout is smaller. Peter suddenly spoke, interrupting the excited Reed. Superman first, what do you mean? What's the point of just using a spacecraft for simple observations? Why don't we take advantage of this time to build a giant space station and capture that cosmic storm directly? As Peter spoke with such confidence, Reed and Ben's expressions instantly became dull. Chapter 74, Nano Armor? No, this is a magic weapon. Build a space station? Capture cosmic storms. The former seems to be relatively easy to achieve, after all, they have Superman. Traveling to and from space does not require huge investments in rockets, but only requires a few rays of sunlight. It also has incredible technology like a teleportation portal, which is even more convenient than any space elevator. However, capturing cosmic storms does not seem to be so easy. Mr. Superman, it's not that we are narrow-minded, it's just, that's a cosmic storm with extremely terrifying cosmic radiation. Ordinary people might. If possible, Reed naturally wanted to capture the cosmic storm and observe it continuously like a guinea pig. In fact, however, cosmic storms are not living things, or even gases. Rather, it is an invisible and huge energy and radiation in the universe. It is already very difficult to resist its invasion and observe it, let alone capture it. Even if you are Superman, I guess. Reed didn't continue speaking, but from his hesitant expression, it can be seen that he had no illusions that Peter could capture the cosmic storm. You think I don't understand cosmic storm, but actually you don't understand Superman. Superman's abilities are never static. Well, Mr. Superman, since you insist, then we naturally have no objection. However, we hope that you can give us the opportunity to observe first, and then carry out the capture operation. At this time, Reed could only fight for his own observation opportunities. Moreover, if you want to build a space station, in addition to the necessary investment in funds and equipment, you may need to travel back and forth between the Earth and outer space many times. Reed said this somewhat embarrassedly. After all, this would undoubtedly be like using the great Superman as a porter. Don't worry, since I proposed the plan, I will do my best. So, Mr. Superman, what are you going to name this space station? Why not just call it, the Watchtower? Peter spoke slowly, confirming the name of the space station. For the next period of time, the construction plan of the Watchtower will be given priority over other experiments. While recruiting various personnel, the company also invested money to build a Watchtower space station on the ground. All Peter had to do was wait for the space station to be built, transport it into space, and integrate it into the Earth's orbit, and then the job would be done. As for how he captured that huge cosmic storm, which interested everyone, Peter kept it a secret. Just wait until the cosmic storm really comes, and then perform in front of everyone. Of course, Peter himself also entered his own company as an intern. After all, he would graduate from high school in a few months. Then it's time to think about going to college. After all, Uncle Ben's stare and Aunt May's nagging are not easy to bear, even if he is Superman. Just after school today, he came to the company with Gwen. That is. As soon as he entered the company, Peter saw a familiar figure. What? You can't take your eyes off a beautiful woman. Seeing Peter suddenly stunned, Gwen followed his gaze, and the smiling expression on her face suddenly turned cold. No, I just think she looks familiar. Looking at the eye-catching figure with hot body and red hair not far away, Peter answered in a calm tone. Why? Do you want me to help you get her contact information? Gwen said in a sour tone. Forget it, let's go. After taking a look, Peter didn't take it seriously and turned to walk towards the elevator. Her name is Natalie, and she's here to discuss cooperation with us on behalf of Stark Industries. Following Peter into the elevator, Gwen hesitated for a moment, but still spoke to Peter. Ms. Gwen, I'm really not interested in her. Peter said in a calm tone. Natalie? That should be Natasha. Peter naturally recognized the famous Black Widow. However, she has now infiltrated Stark Industries. I wonder if she has received any news about Tony's trip to Camartage. I think if that guy knew that Tony gave up studying technology and instead pursued the illusory magic, his face would probably be very interesting. Peter naturally knew that in the original plot, Natasha sneaked into Stark Industries, not only to determine Tony's physical condition, but more importantly to find out Tony's armor technology. Of course, there is also an assessment to see if Tony is qualified to join the Avengers. Unfortunately, their plan may fail now, because Tony is still studying magic hard in Camartage. Thinking of Tony who was learning magic, Peter couldn't help but use his super hearing to eavesdrop on Tony in Camartage across a long distance. In Camartage, Ancient One, who was meditating quietly in the main hall, seemed to have sensed something and suddenly opened his eyes, then smiled and fell into meditation again. And at this moment, Peter saw the scene. It was the scene where Tony, wearing a monk's robe, was fighting against Cassilis, who had a cold expression on his face. Hey, old buddy, even though I'm new here, I can still beat you down. Although only a few days had passed, Tony, being a genius, had already mastered some basic magic. He raised his hands in front of him and slowly separated them. In an instant, a magic whip shining with golden light appeared in his hands. "Humph, rookie apprentice, you still have a lot to learn," Cassilis replied with an extremely cold expression, and the next moment he waved his hand, and a nearly 1 meter long stick suddenly flew over from a distance. Holding the stick in his hand, Cassilis swung it slowly. Under the shining golden light, the stick actually grew a lot longer out of thin air and lashed towards Tony not far away like a long whip. "You're cheating!" Tony rolled to the side in a panic, finally avoiding the sudden attack, and shouted angrily. "Oh, your enemies won't be fair to you." Seeing Tony dodge the attack, Cassilis rushed towards him without hesitation. The whip in his hand, which was shining with golden light, suddenly turned into a long stick and chopped directly at Tony on the ground. "Damn it, you have no martial ethics." Tony didn't have time to get up at this time, and could only hold the magic whip in his hand across his head to face the attack. Boom! The magic whip successfully blocked Cassilis' attack. But Tony didn't have time to be happy. The stick turned into a long whip again and lashed at his back with such force that a knife-like cut was made on his monk's robe. "Hey, it hurts." Feeling the burning pain in his back, Tony also felt very angry. The next moment, he suddenly swung the magic whip in his hand and wrapped it around Cassilis' ankle in front of him. "Just lie down." With a roar, Tony pulled the magic whip violently. The huge force made Cassilis somewhat unsteady on his feet, and he fell backwards. However, before Tony could be happy, he saw Cassilis' other foot flashing golden light, like a pair of small wings. The next moment, not only did he ease the crisis of falling to the ground, he even gained greater strength and kicked straight at Tony. "Damn, why does this guy have so many weird things on him?" Tony quickly dispelled the magic whip and used the magic shield to resist. However, he had practiced magic for too short a time. The magic shield had just been formed when it was shattered by Cassilis' kick and dissipated into golden light. And without losing any momentum, he kicked him directly in the face, sending him flying several meters. "Let me teach you another lesson. This is called a magical weapon. By injecting magical energy into it, you can manipulate the magical weapon's tremendous power." "Fuck, don't hit people in the face." At this moment, Tony seemed to be so anxious that he directly activated the nano armor. He then stood up, and the nanoparticles in his hand turned into a baseball bat and rushed straight towards Cassilis. Facing the aggressive Tony, Cassilis remained calm and opened a portal at the moment Tony was about to hit him. Ah! At the same time, a golden portal appeared in the air, and Tony fell from it. Suddenly, a golden light flashed on Tony's armor, just like the golden wings flashing on Cassilis' feet before. Slowly fanning the air, Tony's body was suspended in mid-air. "I see. You said to inject magical energy into the magic weapon. So now, my battle armor should also be considered a magical weapon." Chapter 75, Forging a Super Monarch Artifact, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Nidavi, the Kingdom of the Dwarves. The whole structure is built around a dazzling neutron star. Hundreds of dwarves live on the huge star ring like a Dyson sphere. They possess the most powerful forging methods in the 9 realms, and the artifacts they forge are famous throughout the universe. Unfortunately, the dwarves were conquered by the powerful Odin long ago, and Nidav became one of the territories he ruled. The dwarves among them can only serve Asgard. Of course, in return, they will also enjoy the protection of Asgard and Odin. This also allowed Nidavi and the dwarves to maintain peace for a long period of time. Suddenly, above the peaceful and tranquil Nidavi star ring, a colorful beam of light suddenly descended. The beam of light quickly dissipated, leaving only a sturdy figure. He was wearing armor, but the silver armor was still stained with undried blood, and a huge skull was tied to his back with chains. There are 2 long horns on the skull, like those of a devil. "Brother Ikki, I'm back." It was Thor, the son of Odin, who stepped out from the Rainbow Bridge. At this moment, he shouted excitedly to the dwarf tribe with an excited look on his face. "Thor, you actually, really defeated Surtur." Soon, a dwarf who was more than 3 meters tall came quickly to Thor. With disbelief, he looked at the demon skull carried on Thor's back. "Of course. I have awakened my divine power. No enemy can stop me." Thor carelessly threw Surtur's skull, which he was carrying on his back, to the ground with a bang. "I don't know how this guy caused Ragnarok. He is so weak." Page 70. Until this moment, Thor found it hard to believe that the prophecy of Ragnarok was actually caused by this guy. By the way, I'll return this hammer to you. It's far inferior to my Mjolnir and not easy to use at all. Afterwards, Thor no longer worried about Ragnarok. He no longer believed in this ridiculous prophecy. He slowly handed the silver hammer in his hand to the dwarf. His eyes were full of disgust. Compared to other hammers, he still prefers his own Mjolnir, but unfortunately. Of course. That hammer is one of my outstanding works. Ai Kui also said with a look of regret. But don't worry, Thor. Since you really have Surtur's skull, I will use my superb forging skills to help you forge a powerful king's weapon again. His power is even greater than the eternal spear in the hands of your father, the god King Odin. While comforting Thor, Atre's eyes revealed strong excitement and anticipation. As blacksmiths, the more powerful the artifacts they create, the prouder they will feel. However, under the protection of Odin, they rarely had the opportunity to create weapons powerful enough, until Thor suddenly arrived a few days ago. With Odin's permission, prepare to forge a new weapon. There are not even any restrictions, even the monarch's artifact belonging exclusively to the king of Asgard can be created. This undoubtedly made Ai Kui excited instantly. Without hesitation, he wanted to create a monarch artifact called Storm Axe that had already been designed for Thor. But he soon overturned this plan. Stormbreaker is indeed very powerful, and its power is even comparable to the eternal spear in Odin's hand. However, there is no upper limit to weapon forging, and what Atre pursues throughout his life is to break the limits of weapons. And this time is the best opportunity. Surtur's skull, plus the eternal fire. Slowly picking up Surtur's skull from the ground, Atre suppressed the intense excitement in his heart and slowly walked towards the huge forge. The power of giants and flames, the interweaving of thunder and storms. This weapon, which has not yet been born, will have the power to destroy the world. Came to the huge forge. Without hesitation, Atre threw the huge Surtur skull in his hand into the forge. Brothers, open the furnace. The next moment, Ikui raised his arms and shouted to the other dwarves. In an instant, several dwarves worked together to turn on the heating device of the forge. The rings surrounding the neutron star began to rotate slowly and gradually closed together. Laugh! In an instant, the neutron star in the center burst into an extremely dazzling light, and a beam of light containing scorching high temperature instantly gushed out from the neutron star. Puff puff! Through the central mechanism of the ring-shaped device, the huge forging furnace surrounding the neutron star was instantly ignited. Even though Thor was far away from the forge, he could instantly feel a surge of scorching heat coming towards him. This is the forging technique of the dwarves. Watching all this in fascination, Thor was even more looking forward to the weapon he was about to obtain. Come on! As the huge energy beams from the neutron star continued to pour into the forge, the intense heat generated was burning Surtur's skull in the forge. However, perhaps because it is a flame in nature, the temperature in the forge has reached a terrifying level. But Surtur's skull still showed no signs of melting. Quick, put the URU metal in. Following the command of the dwarf king Ikrui, several dwarves brought several pieces of silver URU metal raw materials and threw them into the forge without hesitation. Even though URU metal is one of the hardest metals in the entire universe, it is melted almost instantly by the extremely high temperature as soon as it enters the forging furnace. It became a pool of liquid metal like magma. Now, put the witch's feathers and the giant's arrows in there. They can allow the weapons they forge to have the ability to recognize their masters and recall them, as well as lock onto their enemies. As Ai Kui continued to shout, the tribesmen who had been waiting for a long time immediately took out a silver-white feather and a broken arrow and put them into the forge. And these two things were also melted directly the moment they entered the forging furnace. However, at the moment it melted, there was a strange fluctuation visible to the naked eye, which merged into the liquid metal in the forging furnace. Soon, all the forging steps were completed, but Surtur's skull was still not melted by the high temperature. Keep raising the temperature. Etri shouted anxiously. Chief, we can't raise the temperature any further, otherwise our forge might. There are other dwarves nearby who want to give a reminder. Listen to me, turn on the maximum power directly, even if the forge is destroyed. Ai Kui had a determined look on his face, as if he had fallen into madness. The next moment, an even hotter beam of light gushed out from the neutron star. The high temperature was so intense that even the outer wall of the huge forging furnace began to emit a dazzling fiery red light. Clan leader! Great, it's finally melted! Some dwarves wanted to remind Atri, but they saw Atri staring at the scene in the forge with excitement on his face. Chapter 76, A brand new Thor returns to Earth. Witnessed by the dwarf king Ikwi and all the dwarves. One of the longhorns on Surtur's originally complete skull suddenly broke off and instantly melted into the liquid in the forge. This seemed to be a signal, and immediately afterwards, the entire skull was completely melted and integrated into the forging furnace. Quick, put out the fire of the neutron star. Putting away his intense excitement, Ai Kui hurriedly gave new instructions. In an instant, the mechanism on the star ring suddenly closed. The column of hot light that gushed out from the neutron star also slowly dissipated in an instant. Eternal flame, it's up to you now. As the flames of the neutron star died down, a faint golden flame suddenly ignited beneath the forge. However, just under the burning of this weak flame, the entire forging furnace began to vibrate violently. It was as if there was an angry giant beast inside, about to break out of its cocoon. Roar! Amid everyone's shocked gazes, an angry roar from the forge reached everyone's ears. It even seemed to shake the entire 9 realms. In the palace of Asgard, Odin, who was originally resting with his eyes closed and suppressing the growing divine power in his body, seemed to have realized something at this moment. He suddenly opened his single eye and looked into the void, as if he could see through everything within the 9 realms. Surtur, the eternal fire. Dwarf King Atri, you actually did this. In that case, let me lend you a hand. The next moment, Odin's gaze suddenly became firm, and the spear of eternity in his hand pointed straight into the void. In an instant, a dazzling golden beam of light penetrated the entire Asgard, directly spanning the 9 realms like the beam of light of the Rainbow Bridge. That's Surtur. How is that possible? I have already killed him completely. At this moment, Thor and Nidavi looked in disbelief at the huge shadow of a fire giant in the void. He was holding a fiery red sword and swinging it continuously. It seemed that nothing around him could stop his terrifying steps. And in that shadow, Thor seemed to see the familiar Asgard, which was constantly being destroyed and almost destroyed. Atri, what's going on? Thor's face was filled with shock and horror. At this moment, he seemed to have seen the true prophecy of Ragnarok. Don't worry, Thor. It's just the reappearance of its original destiny. The eternal flame inspired all of this, but the gears of fate have shifted, and the future is no longer a predetermined timeline. Page 71. Just as Ikwi explained, a terrifying golden beam of light suddenly pierced through the void, instantly shattering the illusion before everyone's eyes. No! With a roar full of unwillingness, the fiery giant and the golden beam of light directly sank into the huge forging furnace. A strange pattern appeared on the outer wall of the forging furnace, and after a few seconds, it slowly disappeared into it. Odin's blessing. Ai Kui looked at the scene in front of him, his eyes full of surprise. He had forged weapons all his life, but this was only the 3rd time he had witnessed Odin bless a weapon with divine power. Thor, your father. He turned slowly and looked at Thor, seeming to want to say something but stopping himself. But soon, Ai Kui put aside all his dissenting thoughts and focused on forging weapons. Quick, bring the mold over here. Oh, and here's the world branch. Atri shouted anxiously as he watched Odin's blessing melt into the forge. Then he stepped forward personally and slowly pushed over the forge. The next moment, a stream of molten metal that was glittering with various lights and looked like magma slowly flowed out of the forge. Flow into a square mold that has been prepared in advance. As the last drop of liquid metal drained from the forge, the mold was completely filled. Soon, the specially made mold cooled down rapidly, and the liquid metal inside was successfully shaped. Ai Kui watched everything with excitement and smashed the mold without hesitation. The next moment, 2 pieces of fiery red metal that were still emitting high temperatures appeared in his eyes. On the metal block, you can vaguely see fiery red lines, mixed with traces of golden threads. Give me the axe handle. Taking the branch of the world tree from the other dwarves. Atri ignored the metal block that was still emitting scorching heat and slowly extended the branch of the world tree over. In an instant, a strange energy constantly intertwined between the branches of the world tree and the 2 pieces of metal. The branches of the world tree, which had originally been dead, seemed to be reactivated at this moment. The branches began to spread rapidly, stretching out new branches and tightly binding the 2 pieces of metal of the battle axes. Ding! Then, with the crisp sound of metal collision, they were completely and perfectly integrated together. The next moment, Ai Kui felt a powerful force coming from the branch of the world tree in his hand. The successfully forged battle axe instantly flew out of his hands and into the air. For the first time, a doomsday scene covered by dark clouds appeared over the entire sky of Nidavi. Click, boom. Silver lightning and fiery red thunder continued to explode in the dark clouds. The scene that seemed like the end of the world made all the dwarves fall into a daze. Thor, hurry up, grab it and try your best to release the divine power in your body. Only the dwarf king Ikwi looked at Thor expectantly. It is good. Thor didn't hesitate. Silver lightning flashed on his body, as if it was facing the void from afar. The next moment, Thor floated up from the ground and soared into the sky. The battle axe, which was flashing with silver and fiery red lightning, seemed to be attracted by Thor's breath. It circled in the void in an instant and rushed towards Thor rapidly. Thor subconsciously raised his right hand and held the battle axe firmly in his hand. In an instant, two extremely terrifying energies converged towards his body. In just a moment, half of its body was rendered silver-white with flashes of silver electricity. The other half, however, was flashing a bright red light like fire, with dazzling flames lingering around it, filled with an aggressive aura like fire. His two eyes were also flashing with silver and red light respectively. The whole person's aura instantly surged up, like bright red flames and silver thunder perfectly intertwined together. The dark clouds in the sky even completely obscured the light of the neutron star at this moment. Today, I will wash away my past shame with my own hands. As if he sensed something, the majestic Thor raised the battle axe in his hand without hesitation, in the shocked eyes of all the dwarves. A rainbow beam of light was directly summoned by Thor, carrying Thor's body and instantly penetrating the entire 9 realms. This battle axe is worthy of being my most outstanding work. At this moment, Atri watched Thor disappear in front of them with great excitement. Magic armor? It seems very interesting. At the same time, Peter slowly withdrew his consciousness from observing Tony. I'm here, see you later. After saying something to Gwen, Peter slowly walked out of the elevator and came to the laboratory floor where he was doing his internship. Teacher, here I come. Peter's mentor is the beautiful Asian scientist, Dr. Helen Zhao. Mr. Parker, you've come just in time. Come and help me test whether the regeneration cradle is. However, before Peter could agree, suddenly, the whole building shook violently. Is this an earthquake? Zhao Halen looked at Peter with a panicked expression. No, not an earthquake. With Peter's powerful perception, he instantly felt that in a storage room in the building, on a pile of silver metal residue, there were flashes of dazzling electric light. It seemed as if something was strongly attracting them. Sorry, Master, I forgot I have some things to deal with. As he spoke, Peter walked out of the laboratory. The next moment, a figure flew out of the building rapidly and rushed towards the bright beam of light falling from the sky not far away. Midgard, I'm back. The light column dissipated, and Thor, holding a battle axe and with silver and red lightning flashing on his body, floated in the void, looking in a certain direction with a sense of purpose. In the blink of an eye, a figure appeared. Chapter 77, Remarks on the Release, Important. Okay. After more than a month, this book will be officially on the shelves starting from Friday, which is tomorrow at 12 noon. After many ups and downs, I finally made it through 4 rounds of recommendations, and the number of words has reached nearly 18. Although we didn't make it to Sanjiang, the result was still pretty good. At least, it was my best result. Here, first of all, I would like to thank everyone for their daily support and reading. Without your support, I would not be able to get here. Thank you all for your daily recommendation votes and monthly votes. Without further ado, tomorrow, the day the book goes on sale, there will be at least 5 updates, 10,000 words. After that, there will be at least 3 updates, and additional updates will be added from time to time. I asked the editor today, and it turns out that the number of readers is close to 2,000. Therefore, I beg everyone to support a first order tomorrow. Thank you all and kowtow to you all. If the first order is over 1,300, there will be an additional update for every 100 orders thereafter. After the average subscription exceeds 1,200, one additional chapter will be added for every 50 subscriptions. If the results exceed expectations, for example, the average subscription exceeds 1,500, I will increase it by per day. As for rewards, there probably won't be any, but I still have to say that if you reward the helmsman, I will add 1 more chapter. Reward the leader and add 15 chapters. Anyway, I hope everyone can support it. Once again, thank you all very much. If anyone wants to join the group, you can do so. Chapter 78 The power of one punch is like a nuclear explosion, asking for first order and monthly ticket. Everyone, look, what is that in the sky? It's Superman, that's Superman. The other one looks a little familiar. Oh, now I remember, that guy is the god of thunder who invaded the earth not long ago but was defeated by Superman. He actually dared to come to Earth. In the city, countless people noticed the situation in the sky, looked up at the two majestic figures in the sky, and talked about it. At this time, two figures floating above the city were also staring at each other closely. Oh? Now that you've become a little stronger, you can't wait to come over and regain the face you lost last time. Peter looked at Thor, who was holding a battle axe and surrounded by red and silver lightning, and asked slowly in a relaxed tone. Humph, I was indeed careless before. When Peter mentioned the last failure, Thor's face turned a little ugly. But he soon regained his resolve. But this time, I must personally wash away the humiliation you brought upon me and restore the glory of Asgard. To make you understand, I am the real god of thunder. And the tiny human beings can only be protected by us Asgardians. Before Thor could finish his words, two golden beams of light instantly bombarded his body, knocking the unprepared Thor away. So much nonsense! If you want to fight, then use your strength to speak. The golden light in his eyes has not yet dissipated. Peter rushed towards Thor who was knocked away again. Damn you, this guy has no moral principles. Thor, who was knocked away, did not suffer much damage at this time, but he had just stopped flying backwards. Then I found a familiar figure appeared in front of me almost as if I had teleported. This guy is so fast. Thor had no time to be surprised. He swung the battle axe in his hand, which was shining with strong lightning, at the figure in front of him without hesitation. Boom! There was a deafening bang, followed by a violent lightning storm that suddenly broke out. The impact was so powerful that even the glass of the buildings in the city below was shattered in an instant. Why are you in such a hurry? If you want to fight, go to a spacious and deserted place. Peter clenched his fist to hold the battle axe in Thor's hand and grabbed Thor's body with his other hand. The next moment, the speed instantly climbed to several hundred times the speed of sound. Almost in the blink of an eye, it rushed from the bustling city to the sky above a desolate uninhabited area. There is no one within a radius of several hundred kilometers. Looking at a huge mountain not far away, Peter threw Thor out without hesitation. Boom! It was like an intercontinental missile crashing into that huge mountain. Thor's body sank directly into the mountain, raising a huge cloud of dust and countless rocks. However, a few seconds later, a thick layer of dark clouds gathered above the mountain, almost covering the entire sky. The fiery red thunder was brewing inside. Click! The next moment, lightning as thick as a bucket fell down. Under the ravages of violent lightning, the huge mountain was shattered into pieces almost instantly. The rocks collapsed and in just a few seconds, a huge mountain was easily razed to the ground. Boom! A figure suddenly leaped out from the broken rocks. You've completely pissed me off. At this moment, Thor was carrying a terrifying rage of thunder. Holding a battle axe, accompanied by the thunder roaring in the sky, it turned into a huge lightning storm and rushed towards Peter rapidly. Ha! Anger that doesn't match your strength is a sign of incompetence. Looking at Thor who was swept by countless violent lightning bolts, which almost gathered into a hurricane-like lightning storm and was rushing towards him. A scornful smile appeared on Peter's lips. The next moment, Peter slowly raised his right hand and clenched his fingers one by one. The huge pressure was so great that even the air was instantly crushed, and it turned into a pool of liquid that slowly dripped from Peter's fist. Then, facing the lightning storm formed with Thor as the core, Peter threw an ordinary punch. However, this ordinary punch carries hundreds of millions of tons of terrifying force. As it waved, the sky and the earth changed color. The dark clouds that covered the sky disappeared without a trace in an instant under this punch. The terrifying force that erupted in an instant seemed to distort time and space, forming a special scene similar to a small black hole. The air was constantly condensed and compressed, forming a solid fist wind that was visible to the naked eye. Even the sunlight seemed to be attracted, making the sky dim, and the light attached to the solid air fist wind, shining with strong fluorescence. The next moment, it violently exploded towards the lightning storm below. At this moment, everything between heaven and earth became silent. It was as if time had frozen at this moment. The terrifying noise, coupled with the silent scene, made everything look extremely strange. The violent lightning storm was shattered into pieces the moment they met. Thor's body was swept by the surging fist wind and almost instantly accelerated from a standstill to nearly 10,000 times the speed of sound. It crashed down to the ground. In an instant, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. It's like there's a nuclear bomb with a huge equivalent buried deep underground. Beneath the surface, a terrifying shock wave began to spread in all directions, as if a dragon was rolling its huge body underground. Static overpressure is formed, and the instantaneous burst of high pressure and vacuum constantly tears the Earth's plates apart. The entire ground was like the circle painted around the target, with visible bulges and ripples like water waves. However, this phenomenon lasted only a few seconds. Boom! The entire surface exploded in an instant, like a landslide, and a huge mushroom cloud of dust rose up. The smoke and dust almost covered the entire sky within a radius of tens of kilometers. The horrific shock wave stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and strong tremors could still be felt thousands of kilometers away. The Earth is still too fragile and not suitable for fighting. This punch caused an effect even more terrifying than a nuclear bomb explosion, but it made Peter feel a little depressed. On Earth, he was restraining his power every moment. Even in the current battle, he didn't dare to exert even 1/10,000th of his strength. It seems that I need to find a place where I can use my power without restraint. The next moment, before the smoke and dust rising from below dissipated, Peter rushed into the smoke and dust. Thor's body was found at the bottom of a pit nearly 1,000 meters deep. No. Then, in Thor's disbelieving gaze, he snatched the battle axe from his hand. Summoning the Bifrost? I see. The moment he touched the battle axe, Peter almost understood how to use it. The next moment, a bright beam of light came crashing down, sweeping over Thor and Peter's bodies. Nearly an hour later, the smoke and dust finally dissipated slowly. If you look down at the ground from above, you will find that there is only an extremely huge and shocking meteorite crater left. Chapter 79, Give the planet a middle divide, requesting first order, requesting monthly tickets. In an ordinary galaxy dozens of light years away from the solar system, a beam of colorful light came across, but stopped abruptly when it approached a rocky planet about half the size of the Earth. The next moment, the beam of light dissipated, and two figures appeared in it. Human, give me back my battle axe. Thor was very angry after Peter took away his weapon twice in a row. Sorry, there's no air in space. I can't hear you. Although Peter has super hearing, he can hear Thor's words regardless of the communication medium. But at this moment, he pretended not to hear what Thor said and scratched his ears provocatively. So, you go down first. Then, Peter's eyes suddenly turned cold, and he threw Thor's body directly towards the stone planet below. Then, he glanced at the weapon in his hand, which was different from the storm axe in the movie, without any nostalgia in his eyes. Since you want it, I'll give it back to you. Then he threw it directly at the falling Thor. The next second, Peter's body rushed towards the dead planet. If this planet had consciousness, it would definitely exclaim, I forgot to check the almanac before going out today, and how did I get into trouble with these two evil stars? Haha, it's my battle axe. Thor was falling, but was excited to find that his battle axe was following him, and he hurriedly raised his right hand. Come here quickly. Following Thor's call, the battle axe in the air instantly accelerated and flew back into his hand. Great! That guy actually looked down on me so much. Next, I will let him know the consequences of looking down on me. Holding the battle axe in his hand again, the shining electric light once again surrounded Thor's body. The minor injury he had just received from the punch was recovered almost instantly. The divine power reinfused into his body, making him feel even more powerful than he had just been. Next, it's my turn. Thor stopped his falling body and slowly stopped in the air hundreds of meters above the ground. And the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Taking a closer look, it was Peter. Perhaps your strength is indeed beyond my expectations. Staring at Peter in front of him, Thor's eyes gradually became solemn. Peter's performance just now was enough to make him really serious. But the warriors of Asgard cannot be defeated. Thor raised the battle axe in his hand, and the momentum emanating from his body became stronger and stronger. I don't know who almost cried because of the loss last time. However, Peter's light words suddenly stopped Thor's momentum and his face became very ugly. Ahem, I will never lose to you a second time. Thor roared, as if he wanted to burst out all the humiliation of losing to Peter last time. In an instant, terrifying dark clouds covered the sky. Countless red thunders are brewing in it. The lightning surrounding Thor also began to gradually turn into a fiery red color. On the originally silver-white battle axe in his hand, red lines gradually appeared, as bright as fire. Rumble. Under the ground below the two people, it seemed as if there was some huge monster running non-stop. The ground was rolling and surging, as if something was about to break out of it. You were right before. Midgard is not a good place to fight. The humans there are extremely weak and simply cannot withstand the terrifying power that I will unleash at my full strength. Thor's eyes had turned completely blood-red at this moment, with crimson flames burning in his eyes. The violent thunder power shining on his body had already turned into a fiery red at this moment. His whole body was surrounded by bright red flames, like an angry fire giant. But here, I will defeat you thoroughly. The next moment, Thor suddenly raised the battle axe in his hand. The scarlet thunder that was brewing in the sky seemed to have received some special signal. With Thor's action, the energy rushed down violently. Click, click. Extremely thick red lightning bolts kept striking the battle axe in Thor's hand. The terrifying thunder dyed Thor's armor red. The dark clouds were like a bloody sea of thunder. Some of the thunder struck directly on the ground, instantly revealing the true form of the giant beast rolling on the ground. That wasn't a galloping monster, but rather pieces of red, boiling magma. This guy, has he activated his second form? Peter looked at Thor, who was now surrounded by fire and thunder, with interest. I just don't know if he can withstand my punch in this form. Looking at Thor's rising momentum, as if the god of fire and the god of thunder had merged into one, Peter did not try to interrupt him. Finally, the aura around Thor reached a peak. What? Accompanied by a roar full of anger. Thor suddenly leaped hundreds of meters. All the thunder in the dark clouds in the sky seemed to have merged into one with its body. Carrying a strong momentum, with dark clouds and blood-red thunder above the entire sky, accompanied by Thor's body and the battle axe tightly grasped in his hand. It pressed down on Peter like an overwhelming force. The battle axe in his hand flashed with a scarlet light, and to the naked eye, it seemed to have grown several times larger. Like a giant axe covering the sky, it chopped down towards Peter fiercely. The magma below continued to gush out, but was attracted by the terrifying aura around Thor, and gradually gathered into a hideous and terrifying red fire dragon. Hey! With a roar, they rushed towards Peter's body together. It's a big deal, but it's useless. Until this moment, the expression on Peter's face remained unchanged. Impossible, he must be pretending. The battle axe in his hand was about to chop down on Peter, but Thor still didn't see any sign of fear or terror on Peter's face. For the glory of Asgard! Shocked, he gave up everything and rushed towards Peter. Boom! With the force of thunder, the giant axe in Thor's hand was easily blocked by Peter's raised hand just before it fell on Peter's body. How can this be? Thor felt the tremendous power coming from it that was completely unshakable and shouted that it was impossible. There are many impossible things, such as... Peter took a deep breath, and his expression became serious for the first time. The next moment, the other hand slowly clenched into a fist, and under Thor's incredulous gaze, it suddenly punched out. In an instant, time froze. The terrifying power almost became material at this moment. Thor's body, along with the planet below, shattered into pieces. If you look here from space, you will find that on the surface of this planet made of stones, there is a huge chasm that runs across the entire surface of the planet. Below the chasm, the core of the planet can be vaguely seen. Just one punch. Peter gave this stone planet a hairstyle similar to that of a certain singing and dancing enthusiast. The next moment, a beam of light flashed along with the rainbow bridge. Peter disappeared in an instant. But Odin, who was in Asgard, slowly raised his head. Chapter 80, Battle with Odin. Please subscribe and vote. This is Asgard. Peter carried Thor's seriously injured body and slowly appeared in the dissipating rainbow light column. You are, the Midgardian. Heimdall, the guardian of the rainbow bridge, looked at Peter who emerged from the rainbow bridge in great shock. Thor? Damn it, what did you do to him? In shock, Heimdall finally saw Thor in Peter's hands. Looking at Thor's body stained with blood, his eyes were instantly filled with anger. Drawing the silver sword, he rushed directly towards Peter, vowing to avenge Thor. Are all you Asgardians so unreasonable? Peter casually threw the seriously injured Thor over. Simple movements contain tremendous power. Thor. Heimdall shouted and hurriedly dropped the sword in his hand, trying to catch the flying Thor. How can this be? However, at the moment of contact, a tremendous force swept over instantly. Together with him, they were knocked away dozens of meters and crashed into the rainbow bridge that was shining with colorful light. The enormous force directly knocked the two people out of the surface of the rainbow bridge. Heimdall was still conscious, so he managed to grab the edge of the rainbow bridge with his hands. No. But Thor, who had already lost consciousness, was about to fall into the space-time wormhole under the rainbow bridge under his watch. Heimdall's unwilling roar seemed to have worked. A figure suddenly appeared at the edge of the rainbow bridge. An old and powerful hand grabbed Thor's body that was about to fall and pulled him back onto the rainbow bridge. Your Majesty, you are finally here. Solta. Heimdall's face was full of surprise, and he seemed to be hesitant to speak when he saw Odin's sudden arrival. Come up first. Odin's old face was calm and he extended his hand to Heimdall. Human, why did you break into Asgard? After rescuing Heimdall, Odin, holding the Spear of Eternity, looked at Peter seriously and questioned him in a majestic voice. When I enter Asgard, it's an intrusion. When you enter Earth, it's an advent. Ha, how ridiculous. Ignoring Odin's serious expression, Peter showed a sarcastic look on his face. You. Heimdall wanted to refute, but was stopped by Odin. Your Excellency, there is no need for us to argue about these meaningless things. I just want to know, why did you come here this time? Odin, wearing golden armor, exuded a powerful aura at this moment and continued to question Peter. Oh, you've already seen it, I just came here to send this guy back who has repeatedly provoked me. I mean this out of the kindness of my heart. Peter had a kind smile on his face, as if everything was just as he said. Thor is like this, and you still say you have good intentions. Heimdall held Thor's seriously injured body, his face full of anger. He was just seriously injured. This is normal. Who told him to come to Earth and provoke me when he had nothing better to do? I didn't kill him on the spot because I showed mercy. Peter's expression gradually became serious as he spoke, and he stared at Odin with an aggressive look. You. Heimdall was filled with rage and was about to rush forward. Stop. However, as the Spear of Eternity in Odin's hand suddenly slammed into the rainbow bridge. An angry voice spread throughout Asgard, and all Asgardians could not help but look in that direction, wondering why Odin was so angry. Sir, on behalf of Thor, I apologize to you and thank you for showing mercy. If you need anything, you can tell me. We in Asgard will do our best to help you. Odin's expression kept changing, but he finally suppressed his intense anger and expressed his apology and gratitude to Peter in a calm tone. I didn't expect that you, an old fellow, have not only grown old, but your mind has also become much more open. Peter didn't expect that Odin could suppress his inner anger and not attack him. It seems that my plan to provoke him and make him fight with me again today may not be possible. Thor, who has awakened his divine power and possesses a divine weapon that surpasses the monarch level, is already very powerful. But for Peter at this moment, there is still no challenge. If he had not shown mercy just now, then with that punch, Thor's body would have turned into dust in the universe along with the planet. Only now, Odin, who looks extremely old but whose divine power has reached its peak, can be on par with Peter today when he uses his full strength. Unfortunately, this old guy is too cautious. In order to last longer, he almost never uses his full strength. Even last time, he just ran away in a panic. Forget it. I don't want any compensation or anything like that. Peter waved his hands to indicate that he didn't need anything. However, since you can go to Earth to challenge me, then I should be able to challenge you Asgardians as well. It's settled. Now, on behalf of the Earth, I come to challenge you Asgardians. Suddenly, a hint of excitement flashed across Peter's face, and he issued a challenge to all Asgardians without hesitation. Of course, I'm challenging a truly strong person, not a weakling. After all, I may not hold back next time. As Peter spoke, he glanced at the seriously injured Thor and Heimdall with contempt. You ignorant human being, His Majesty the Divine King is not someone you can provoke. Before Heimdall could finish his words, Odin raised his hand. Okay, I agree to your challenge. But I also have a condition. Odin looked serious and spoke slowly. Okay, as long as you agree to the challenge, just tell me what the conditions are. Peter didn't expect that Odin actually agreed to his challenge. While he was excited, he did not refuse his conditions. I hope, give me some time to prepare. After all, the battle between us is probably no small matter. Odin calmly stated his conditions. That's it. No problem at all. Peter thought he would put forward some conditions, and agreed almost without hesitation. However, I can give you some time to prepare, but it's best not to exceed 10 days. After all, my patience is limited. However, in order to block Odin's retreat, Peter still gave an accurate time limit. Okay, just 10 days. Odin pondered for a moment, then agreed without hesitation. In that case, I will leave first. This axe will be a token of our relationship, in case you regret it later. Peter held the battle axe in his hand, and the next moment he opened the rainbow bridge and disappeared in Asgard.